Hello, your channel Eugene Light Novels greets you. I hope you are enjoying these beautiful novels. Now, let's continue with the novel, Pokemon, I Just Want to Fight Crime. First part. Chapter 1 Arthur and Arcanine. Hoenn Region, Safari Zone. An off-road vehicle was driving fast on the grassland, and a large number of Pokemon were driven away in front. Damn, why did that mad dog appear here? Didn't he say he was still in Petalburg Woods? A middle-aged burly man roared loudly while driving away, his tone full of panic. Behind them, a sturdy Arcanine was approaching them at a speed visible to the naked eye. Since last year, a mad dog has appeared in the Hoenn region, and any poacher who encounters it will not be spared. At least he will be imprisoned for life, and even if he wants to find connections and spend money to bail him out, it is very difficult. Now that the mad dog has set his sights on him, how can these poachers not panic? What these poachers who fled in panic did not notice was that at this time, there was a huge bird flying fast and soaring in the sky, and a golden-haired boy was silently observing all this. Suddenly, the boy made a gesture, and Arcanine, who was running fast on the ground, understood and sped up his running speed. A hot flame appeared around him, and the whole sturdy dog turned into a huge fireball and quickly tackled the off-road vehicle. Boom! With a collision sound, the off-road vehicle was knocked sideways under such a tackle. Arcanine did not stop, but quickly came to the sideways off-road vehicle, smashed the window with a slap, and took out the poacher inside. Seeing this scene, the huge flying bird fell from the sky. The golden boy took out his mobile phone and quickly edited a message, then came to the off-road vehicle. Seeing the backpack inside, he tried to take it out. And just as the boy stretched out his hand, a purple giant snake suddenly drilled out of the backpack, showing its ferocious fangs, and biting towards the boy's neck. Facing such an attack, the boy seemed not to see normal, and did not dodge or avoid, allowing the snake to bite him. However, before the purple snake could bite the boy, the big bird beside him flapped its wings and grabbed the notorious snake, Sevaper, with its claws. "Heh, Sevaper! Shameful trick!" The boy snorted and took out his backpack and 2 Pokemon eggs from the car. Seeing that his trump card Sevaper was easily taken down, the poacher was also disheartened. Is his backhand just a trick? Let me see what's inside. Arthur, the name of the blonde boy, first opened the backpack, which contained several blank Pokeballs, several special documents, a fire stone of decent quality, and a dawn stone with many impurities. This made Arthur curl his lips. Sure enough, he expected these poachers to have something good. There was something wrong with his brain. Then, his eyes swept over the 2 Pokemon eggs. Pokemon Egg, Aaron. Potential, Elite. Pokemon Egg, Trap-Inch. Potential, Gym Level. Are they Trap-Inch and Aaron's Pokemon eggs? Aaron's Pokemon Egg has good talent and is worth cultivating, but Trap-Inch's talent is a little too poor. It's only gym level. I was so disappointed that I had a little expectation after seeing that it was Trap-Inch's Pokemon Egg. Then this Aaron Pokemon Egg is my reward. It's not impossible to admit that I have a problem with my brain at this time. D. Then he turned his eyes to Arcanine and Pidgeot who were alert around him. Pokemon, Arcanine. Attribute, Fire. Height, 2.08 meters. The average height of the race is 1.9 meters. Weight, 192 kilograms, average weight of the race is 155 kilograms. Ability, Intimidation, Heart of Justice. Gender, male. Skills, Extreme Speed, Play Rough, Fire Fang, Flare Blitz, Howl, Help, Crunch, Retaliate, Agility, Ember, Roar, Bite, Leer, Flame Will, Takedown, Flamethrower, Thunder Fang, Flame Vortex. Strength, Elite Beginner. Potential, Champion. System Evaluation, Arcanine is a talented and well-trained person. Whether it is a fast attack or a standing attack, Arcanine can perfectly take on the responsibility. Pokemon, Pidgeot. Attribute, Flying, Normal. Height, 1.75 meters, average height of the race is 1.5 meters. Weight, 48.5 kilograms, average weight of the race is 39.5 kilograms. Ability, sharp eyes. Gender, male. Skills, hurricane, tackle, sand attack, gust, quick attack, whirlwind, twister, feather dance, agility, wing attack, roost, tailwind, destruction light. Strength, quasi-elite mid-level. Potential, elite. System evaluation, Pidgeot with excellent talent, good at fast flying. These two are Arthur's current main Pokémon, and it seems that Arthur has trained them well. Let me go. Please let me go. Seeing Arthur coming, the poacher stuttered and begged for mercy. Arthur took out a certificate from his pocket, and he was completely free of the greed he had felt after seeing the errant Pokémon egg. He said righteously, "Interpol, Inspector Arthur, you are under arrest." Interpol? The poacher's face turned pale when he heard this. He finally understood why the poachers and Pokémon hunters targeted by Mad Dog could not be released on bail. It turned out that the trainer of Mad Dog was actually an Interpol and an inspector. Such a young Interpol inspector, it would be a lie to say that there was no relationship at all. Normal people would not dare to offend such a person. It seems that he will also become one of the other party's merits. Seeing the pale-faced poacher, Arthur snorted lightly, "Poacher born evil, you will repent in prison in the future." Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the capture mission, and reward a chance to draw a lottery. Draw a lottery. Arthur muttered silently in his heart. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining a flame orb. Flame orb? Arthur pouted his lips with some disdain, took out the flame orb, and threw it directly to Arcanine beside him. Arcanine took the flame orb and hid it in his mane very familiarly, with a happy look on his silly face. Next, you must also work hard to become stronger. Arcanine. This way you can better fight against evil. Arthur touched Arcanine's head and said softly. Woof woof. Arcanine called out twice, and a strong fighting spirit flashed in his wise eyes. Chapter 2 Arthur, Partner of Justice. A moment later, several police officers, led by Officer Jenny, hurried to Arthur. Officer Jenny bowed to Arthur first, then said, "Arthur, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, it wouldn't be so easy for us to catch the poacher Mitsuichuan. He has been on the run and committed crimes no less than 10 times. It's my duty." Arthur waved his hand and said softly, "Fighting crime is what I should do as an Interpol." Then, he seemed to have thought of something, handed the backpack he found before to Officer Jenny and said, "There seems to be a lot of evidence in it. Please investigate it when you go back. Oh, by the way, these 2 Pokémon eggs were obtained by Mitsuichuan's poaching. This one is Aaron and the other is Trapinch. According to the regulations, I am eligible to choose the seized stolen goods. How about I take Aaron away?" Officer Jenny took the backpack from Arthur and said seriously, "You are worthy of being the light of justice. As an Interpol, Arthur, you have the power to choose unowned stolen goods. However, compared to Aaron, Trapinch is even rarer. I see that you haven't collected 6 yet. Pokémon, how about you take it with you? No, as a trainer, we are also responsible for Pokémon. Pokémon that have just hatched need more care from the trainer." Arthur said righteously, "This is also what my uncle and others have always taught me. It's just that the light of justice really made him feel embarrassed." "Professor Oak? I understand." Officer Jenny looked stern, and there was a feeling in his heart. Arthur is worthy of being Professor Oak's nephew. This kind of awareness is definitely not comparable to that of normal people. "I'll leave it to you here, Officer Jenny." Arthur put Arcanine back into the poke ball, put Aaron's Pokémon egg into his space backpack, and then jumped on the back of Pidgeot and flew to soaring in the sky. "Sir, is that the light of justice of the Interpol department?" The police officer behind Officer Jenny asked Officer Jenny expectantly. "Yes, he is the light of justice. He is also the hope of the Alliance," Jenny said solemnly, and then she looked at Mitsuikawa who was desperate. "Scum like this has no meaning to exist. If it is according to normal laws, he will only be sentenced to 20 years at most, and the qualification to own Pokémon will be revoked. But the poachers caught by Arthur almost all start with life imprisonment. This. Hearing Jenny's introduction, the police officers on the side were also stunned. Is this a privilege? Can Professor Oak's nephew do whatever he wants? Officer Jenny glanced at the police behind her, and a smile appeared on her face and said, "Alliance needs such people." She looked at Mitsuikawa with disgust. Such poachers should be executed directly. For people like them, whether they are qualified to own Pokemon has no effect on them. It is meaningless to talk to them about human rights. Arthur sat on Pidgeot's back and flew quickly toward Slateport City, his thoughts flying. It has been 17 years since he came to this Pokemon world. If nothing unexpected happens, Ash and Gary should also be about to set off on a journey, right? The next few years may not be too peaceful. Arthur's full name is Oak Arthur. His mother is the cousin of the famous Professor Oak. His father was once an assistant in Professor Oak's laboratory. He gave birth to Arthur soon after marrying Arthur's mother. Because he was considered a son-in-law, Arthur also took his mother's surname. When Arthur was 2 years old, his family was invited by his mother's friend Professor Moan to go to Alola region to study Ultra Wormhole. Before the age of 10, Arthur grew up in Alola region, of course, mainly in Ether Foundation. But people are unpredictable. When he was 10 years old, his parents disappeared in the Ultra Wormhole while studying Ultra Wormhole with Professor Moan. This news attracted Professor Oak to the Alola region. After half a year of research, they were unable to open the Ultra Wormhole, and Arthur was taken back to Pallet Town by Professor Oak. There, Arthur met Ash and Gary, who were 2 years older than Arnold, and grew up with his cheap niece Casey. Until the age of 15, Arthur received a message in his mind, a conditional prompt for the system to be activated. This also surprised Arthur, who was about to remind his uncle to prepare some Mega Evolution Stones to earn a certain reputation for himself. This system actually required him to join the official organization of the Alliance and become an official person who punishes evil and promotes good. Of course, there are still many ways to activate the system. For example, as long as he becomes a good enough trainer, becomes an Elite Four, he can punish evil and promote good, or join the Alliance Search Officer system, or even become a Ranger. It seems that all of these can activate the system. But in the end, Arthur chose to join Interpol, on the one hand because in the future Interpol department seems to have an agency specifically for Ultra Wormhole, and on the other hand, because his cousin, Professor Oak's son, Casey and Gary's father, is a senior official of Interpol. After understanding Arthur's idea, Professor Oak and his friends did not refuse, and even continued to build momentum for Arthur. In addition, because of the requirements of the system of punishing evil and promoting good, he has the opportunity to participate in the lottery every time he fights crime. After becoming Interpol, he directly became a partner of justice and fought against crime. During this period, Arthur also got a lot of benefits. Although most of the rewards were some Pokemon props and materials, there were also many interesting things. For example, his current wave power was obtained in an action of destroying a notorious Pokemon hunter. Because of the wave power, Arthur's physical fitness is comparable to some weaker Pokemon. He believes that as long as he continues to develop the wave power, he will be able to develop it to Ash's level sooner or later. Well, although Ash used the Ho-Oh cheat, Arthur also used the same cheat. Chapter 3, Attacking Team Rocket? This is a big deal. It has been more than a year since Arthur joined Interpol. During this period, Arthur participated in many missions and arrested many poachers. During this period, Arthur used his connections to make those poachers who should have been released after a few years of imprisonment face life imprisonment one by one. Even during the mission, Arthur directly killed the poachers who he was unhappy with. After all, poachers have arrested too many people, so it is normal to accidentally kill them for this. Arthur has not been blamed for this. Even his style of hating evil and his connections behind him have made Arthur admired by many people. For example, a flying elite who claims to be a righteous partner like Arthur and does not want to reveal his name, and is also an Alliance investigator. For example, the Alliance president, Mr. Damaranchi. Obviously, Arthur's character is well shaped, and he himself is quite satisfied with his current life. Of course, he also has a lot of regrets, such as not being able to travel like Ash and Gary. Another example is that he has very high requirements for Pokemon, and he has not yet collected all 6 Pokemon. Of course, when facing most enemies, Arcanine and Pidgeot are enough to deal with them, but if he wants to deal with those evil organizations, his current lineup is a bit weak. It seems that it is time to train more other Pokémon. Just as Arthur was thinking about these questions, his cell phone rang. When he saw the number on it, Arthur was stunned for a moment, but he still picked up the phone and smiled. Do you have something to talk to me about? Or do you have criminals who have come to the Hoenn region and need my help? Arthur, something happened. Du on the other end of the phone said in a very serious tone, just yesterday, the Kanto Region Interpol branch and the Kanto Alliance investigators launched a joint operation to encircle and suppress Team Rocket, and the entire army was destroyed. What? Arthur was also shocked when he heard it. The entire army was destroyed? If you want to encircle and suppress Team Rocket, you should have let the Elite Four lead the team, right? How could the entire army be destroyed? Because the Elite Four had their own tasks, they did not participate in the mission. The team was led by Investigator Komuro from the Kanto region. Du said in a serious tone. I heard that Officer Komuro has strength that is not inferior to the Elite, and even competed with you for the position of Kanto Elite Four. Arthur asked in surprise, is he in trouble too? Yes, this time we got intelligence that Team Rocket executive car appeared near Celadon City. Officer Komuro led the team to arrest him immediately, and Miss Erica, trainer of Celadon City Gym, was there to provide support. But when Miss Erica arrived at the scene, the battle was over. All the personnel were missing. Among them, there were elites from Interpol and Alliance Investigation Department. Du's tone was extremely serious. It was obvious that at this moment, Du had a volcano in his heart that was about to erupt. Are you doubting Miss Erica? Arthur narrowed his eyes and asked Du back. No, it can't be Erica. Before the operation started, Erica didn't know about this at all. At first, Komuro even tried to hide it from Erica, and Erica arrived at the scene within 20 minutes after the distress message was sent. This is almost the limit of Erica. What Ari denied it directly, this may be a trap set by Team Rocket. Or there may be a traitor on our side who betrayed Komuro and their information. Team Rocket does have a lot of spies. If nothing unexpected happens, the Kanto Alliance will soon be infiltrated by Team Rocket. Even half of the gym trainers are Team Rocket members. There was a moment when Arthur really wanted to tell Du the truth he knew, but after hesitating for a while, Arthur still couldn't bear it. Not to mention that he had no evidence to prove that Giovanni was the leader of Team Rocket. Even if he told Du and Du believed him, he would be very likely to suffer the revenge of Team Rocket. Even if he was a member of the Oak family, it was no exception. The Alliance had been infiltrated by Team Rocket for a long time, and he didn't believe that these secrets would be kept. It seems that there is a problem with Alliance, maybe Interpol or the Investigation Department. Of course, both are possible. Arthur sighed and said, it seems that you will be busy next. Yes, now I don't even know who I can trust and who I can't trust. Du said helplessly, so, Arthur, I want to invite you back to Kanto. I remember that you have been in Hoenn region for a year. Don't you think about returning to Kanto region? This time, Interpol's power in Kanto has suffered serious losses. If you come back, many people will be happy to see it. Becoming a police chief should be a natural thing. Du, I never became Interpol for promotion. Arthur reminded righteously. But you can do your justice better after you get promoted. Arthur, the evil organization in Hoenn region is nothing compared to Team Rocket. I have a feeling that Team Rocket is planning something big in secret. Once their plan succeeds, the whole world may be under the shadow of Team Rocket. We must stop them. I need your help too. Du persuaded earnestly. Arthur touched his nose after hearing this. Du's premonition was really accurate. Thinking of the legendary Pokémon that was being created, he might really go back to Kanto region. If there is no problem with the Pokémon's mind and it really becomes Team Rocket's thug willingly, it will have a huge impact on Kanto region and Professor Oak. And Team Rocket. That is not something that normal Pokémon hunters and poachers can compare to. If he can fight Team Rocket's actions, the benefits he will get will be huge. Besides, Gary and his friends are about to start their journey, so as his uncle, I should go back to see him and see if there are any Pokemon worth catching along the way. I can't give you an answer right now. I need to discuss it with the organization. As for me, I want to return to Kanto region and fight Team Rocket with you. Arthur's words have a different meaning to Do. Arthur is indeed the same person as himself. Even though he knows that it will be very dangerous to fight Team Rocket, Arthur is still willing to return to Kanto region. He is indeed a righteous partner that he recognizes. Chapter 4: Arthur's main lineup. After hanging up the phone with Do, Arthur hesitated for a while. He didn't call other people directly, but just silently thought about what he should do next. Go to Kanto region and find trouble with Team Rocket. This is definitely going to happen. Perhaps there are many dangers in it, but as a time traveler, and before the time travel, Arthur was a Pokemon fan. He knew many secrets that many people didn't know. If applied well, these secrets will bring unimaginable benefits to Arthur. Although there are some dangers, they can also bring huge benefits to himself. He will eventually stand on the corpse of Team Rocket to the top. Team Rocket? It looks powerful, but it's just an opportunity to brush the number of draws. The key is to see how Arthur will do it in the future and how to maximize the benefits. While Arthur was constantly thinking about how to enter the game, he had returned to his home in Slateport City. As the young master of the Oak family, after becoming Interpol, he did a lot of tasks and arrested a large number of poachers. His salary and bonuses were still quite a lot. His residence in Slateport City was a small villa in the suburbs. It's not that they can't afford a house in the city center, but the Alliance has officially stipulated that even public officials cannot use flying Pokemon in the city center during non-mission periods. As soon as he landed, Arthur released Arcanine, and a brown-gray figure ran out of the house quickly, calling out to Bye in dissatisfaction. Sorry, Eevee, you were still asleep when I went out just now, so I didn't take you with me. Arthur said apologetically when he saw the little guy so angry. Pokemon, Eevee. Attribute, Normal. Height, 0.32 meters, average height of the species is 0.3 meters. Weight, 7.1 kilograms, average weight of the species is 6.5 kilograms. Ability, Adaptability, Danger Prediction. Gender, Female. Skills, Tackle, Tail Whip, Growl, Help, Covet, Sand Attack, Quick Attack, Baby Doll Eyes, Swift, Bite, Copycat, Baton Pass, Takedown, Charm, Shadow Ball. Strength, Quasi-Elite Mid-Level. Potential, Champion. System Evaluation, Eevee is powerful, it may consider the issue of its own evolution, otherwise, the Earl Dervish form will eventually limit Eevee's combat power. This Eevee is Arthur's Earl Dervish Pokemon. When he was 14 years old, Professor Oak brought 2 Pokemon eggs for him and Gary, both of which were Eevee's Pokemon eggs. At that time, Arthur had not yet activated the system, and after letting Gary choose first, this Eevee became his Pokemon. Fortunately, Eevee's talent is very good, but it has been a few years, and Eevee has not yet considered what form to evolve into. Moreover, for now, Eevee seems to prefer to maintain this contest condition so that it can lie on Arthur's shoulder better. Just like Gary's Eevee. If nothing unexpected happens, Gary's Eevee should be the moon Pokemon in the future. And in the yard, there is a blue and white fox lying on the ground playing Yawn. Pokemon, Ninetales. Attribute, Ice, Fairy. Height, 1.42 meters, average height of the race is 1.1 meters. Weight, 28.5 kilograms, average weight of the race is 19.9 kilograms. Ability, Snowfall. Gender, Female. Skills, Dazzling Gleam, Tail Whip, Blizzard, Icy Wind, Imprison, Disable, Mist, Frozen Ray, Aurora Beam, Confuse Ray, Spite, Powder Snow, Extrasensory, Nasty Plot, Ice Shard, Freeze Drying, Aurora Veil. Strength, Quasi-Elite High. Potential, Elite. System Evaluation, a very well-trained Aloliform Ninetales, with special talents in Psychic and Fairy skills, and Physical Strength Deviation, it is recommended to improve. This Ninetales was sent by Arthur's cousin Oak Samson, that is Professor Oak of the Alola region. When Arthur's family was in Alola region, Arthur often visited him. The relationship between the two sides was quite good. After Arthur became Interpol, the uncle sent this present to Arthur. Ice Ninetales, EV, Arcanine, Pidgeot, this is Arthur's current lineup. A year after becoming Interpol, Arthur did not think about conquering other Pokémon, but there were too few Pokémon with good talents. Especially in the wild, it is more difficult to encounter Pokémon with excellent talents. Pokémon with elite talents are absolutely 1 in 10,000. Even in some groups, such as Caterpie, among Pokémon, even if there are hundreds of millions of Caterpies, there may not be a Caterpie with elite talents. Of course, the so-called potential talent is not the upper limit of a Pokémon locked on. With a lot of natural treasures, hard work and reasonable training, it is not necessarily impossible to exceed one's own limits. Just like Giovanni's Big Needle, it also became a level beyond the champion Pokémon. It is one thing to encounter wild Pokémon with excellent talents. Many times, even if you encounter wild Pokémon with good talents, Arthur doesn't like them. Moreover, it is better to capture young Pokémon or Pokémon eggs. Adult Pokémon have their own fighting methods. Many of them have missed the rapid growth period of levels. Some Pokémon even have a lot of hidden injuries. If you want to change their habits and improve their strength, you will often get half the result with twice the effort. As for the Pokémon that Arthur has cultivated so far, Arcanine was given by his cousin when he became Interpol. Eevee was given by my uncle, Ninetales by my cousin, but I captured Pidgey by myself in the Viridian Forest. At that time, it was still Pidgey. It's still a little short. After Arthur took Aaron's Pokémon egg out of his backpack, he carefully calculated his lineup and sighed silently. Bye? Eevee looked at Arthur curiously when he saw the Pokémon egg in Arthur's hand. This is a new partner. Arthur touched Eevee's head, and seeing that the other party seemed a little worried, he quickly added, but this will be a big guy. Hearing Arthur's words, Eevee was also slightly relieved. Big guys are good, big guys won't snatch Arthur's shoulders with him. Chapter 5, Arthur is the Light of Justice. Hey, Arthur, why did you call me? Professor Oak asked with a hearty laugh after receiving Arthur's call in the Professor Oak laboratory. Dew called me before and invited me to return to the Kanto region to fight against Team Rocket with him. Facing his uncle, Arthur did not hide anything and spoke directly. Upon hearing this, Professor Oak's expression was stern, and he said seriously, "So are you planning to come back?" "Yes, I plan to come back. I just don't know if it will cause trouble for you. After all, Team Rocket has a great influence in the Kanto region, and it would be bad if you were implicated," Arthur said with a wry smile. "Arthur, if you think you are doing the right thing, don't hesitate. Besides, they have been getting bigger and bigger over the years, and I can't stand many of their things. If I wasn't bad at fighting, I would also like to participate in the action against Team Rocket." Professor Oak said earnestly, "Since you want to deal with Team Rocket, as your uncle, I will naturally support you." "Is that so?" Arthur smiled slightly. "But Professor Oak is not good at fighting?" "Huh, I believe you. If I hadn't seen the level of your Dragonite, I might have believed you. Besides, I suspect that Team Rocket is planning something during this period. You have done a good job in the Hoenn region this year, and now the Kanto region needs you." Then Professor Oak said righteously, "In that case, I will be back in a few days. Then I'll leave my transfer to you," Arthur said sincerely. "Well, I will solve this matter for you." Professor Oak did not refuse. "Yes, Gary and Ash will go on a trip next month. You haven't received your Earl Dervish Pokémon yet, why don't you receive it with Gary and the others this time?" "Earl Dervish Pokémon?" Arthur's eyes flickered slightly. "Okay, my current lineup is not complete yet, I hope I can have a Pokémon that satisfies me by then." As an official child of the Alliance, Arthur is naturally qualified to receive the official 3 Pokémon. Arthur would naturally not reject the 3 Pokémon from Kanto region. Whether it is Charizard, Blastoise or Venusaur, they are all powerful and popular Pokémon. Especially Charizard, no matter which generation, Charizard is his own son. Before, when he was 16 years old, Professor Oak did remind Arthur to collect Earl Dervish Pokémon, after all, he paid for it. But the talents of the 3 Pokémon at that time were not very good, so he temporarily gave up his opportunity and came to Hoenn region, and the quota has been reserved until now. I have seen this batch of 3 Pokémon, and some of them have good talents. You can come and see them when the time comes. Professor Oak reminded with a smile. As an upright Pokémon professor, he would not open a special backdoor for Arthur and others in this regard. Arthur and others chose Pokémon with excellent talents, and others will also choose those with poor talents. Professor Oak once taught Arthur and Gary how to identify the talents of Pokémon in a basic way. Although this identification method is not 100% accurate, it can only roughly estimate the talent of this Pokémon. Of course, this is not necessarily accurate, and it also requires sufficient understanding of this type of Pokémon. In Professor Oak's opinion, if Arthur and Gary can choose an excellent Earl Dervish Pokémon, it is naturally a happy thing. But if they don't choose an excellent Pokémon, the impact is not very big. Arthur and his team already have other excellent Pokémon. Compared with normal people, Arthur and his team have already started very well. I understand. Arthur did not refuse after hearing this, and agreed directly. After ending the call with Professor Oak, Arthur also sent his thoughts to Dew. He believed that with Dew and Professor Oak asking, it would be easy for him to go to the Kanto region. Sure enough, Arthur is a partner of justice. He knows that the Kanto region is dangerous, but he is still willing to return to the Kanto region. After receiving Arthur's message, Dew smiled and said, "Arthur? Is he the one who has become famous recently in Interpol?" Bruno asked Dew. "Yes. I called him before and invited him to fight against Team Rocket with me. He agreed." Dew smiled and said, "Although he is not yet 17 years old, his strength is not much worse than mine. The most important thing is that he has an almost innate sense of justice. With him and I working together to fight against Team Rocket, I have greater confidence. I hope he won't give up halfway like that old guy Oak." Granny Agatha snorted and sneered. Granny Agatha has always been concerned about Professor Oak's family. What's more, Arthur is also a celebrity in Alliance. Granny Agatha is not dissatisfied with Arthur, at least he is not engaged in research like Oak. Fighting against criminal forces is not bad. But his strength is not enough now. Maybe it is more than enough to fight against normal poachers, but if facing Team Rocket, such strength is far from enough. Not to mention Arthur, even Dew might not be able to do that. However, if Arthur was in danger, that old guy couldn't just sit there and watch, right? Grandma Agatha's eyes flickered slightly. For her, this might also be an opportunity. Arthur will not give up training Pokémon. I know Arthur. In order to implement justice, he will continue to improve his strength. Dew said in a tone that no one knows Arthur better than me. However, Arthur's current strength is still insufficient. We will also be the main force in the special crackdown on Team Rocket that we will launch later. Bruno nodded slightly and said, "Now the Interpol department and the search department have suffered heavy losses. During this period, we really need to crack down on the criminal forces in the Kanto region. I will meet him after he comes to the Kanto region. I also want to see what kind of person the boy who can be so respected by Dew is." Lorelei sat aside and silently used the elite authority to search for Arthur's information. Of course, this is just some basic information. After seeing Arthur's commonly used Pokémon, Lorelei's eyes also flashed a little bit of light. Ice Ninetales. Very good Pokémon. Chapter 6 Alpaca, I have something to talk to you about. Ding, congratulations to the protagonist for being promoted to police chief and getting 5 chances to draw a lottery. With the actions of Professor Oak and Dew, Arthur's promotion order was quickly issued. Interpol police chiefs under the age of 17 are not unprecedented in the Interpol department, but they are rare. Of course, Arthur is not a backdoor. His contributions over the past year are enough to make him a police chief. If there is no such relationship, Arthur's promotion may be suppressed. When he is a little older, he will be promoted again. Of course, this is also related to the heavy losses suffered by the Interpol department in the Kanto region this time. After Arthur returns to the Kanto region, he needs to help rebuild the Kanto branch. However, just being a police chief is still too low. Arthur licked his lips and then complained again. The position of police chief is certainly not low, but in Arthur's opinion, it is still insufficient. Next, he will set a small goal for himself and be promoted to superintendent within a year. Let's draw a lottery. Arthur muttered silently in his heart. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Prism Scale, a dive ball, a Minccino, Quasi-Elite Potential, Pokemon Egg, Turtle Immortal Training Method, and Catlia's White Silk. Turtle Immortal Training Method? Even though Arthur knew that this system would draw things from other worlds for him, he was obviously stunned after hearing this information. First, he was given the power of wave guidance, and then he was given the Turtle Immortal Training Method. Is this to let him be on par with gods with his mortal body? Or, when the alpaca wants to destroy the world in the future, he should stand out and shout, "Evil beast, stop it for me"? Don't say it, this seems quite exciting. Of course, Arthur also knows that he is not a Mega Scion, but just a Mega True Rookie, and he should not be able to practice to the extent of destroying the Earth with a casual blow. After all, even in Dragon Ball, there are only a few aliens who can really do starbursts. There are not many Earthlings who can do it. Maybe he can really practice it. Prism Scale is a good thing. It is no secret that Phoeba needs Prism Scale to evolve into Milotic. However, Prism Scale is currently invaluable. Arthur is still quite interested in Milotic. It would be nice to find a Phoeba with good talent and cultivate it when there is a chance. Minccino is also a good Pokemon. The Quasi-Elite level Minccino is also considered to be relatively excellent among this race. After all, Minccino is often cultivated as a domestic pet and is deeply loved by young ladies. However, for Arthur, the Quasi-Elite Minccino is still a little short, even if there are some means to improve its potential, or even cultivate it beyond the limit. But Arthur does not have so much time to cultivate Minccino, but he can give Minccino to others. It's a pity that Lily can't contact Pokemon now, otherwise Minccino can be given to Lily. It seems that Minccino can only be given to Casey. As for Catlia's White Silk, keep it for now, it won't have much impact, ahem. Arthur had just drawn the reward when his cell phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was due again. Arthur answered the phone directly. "Arthur, you should have received the transfer order, right?" Dew said straight to the point. "Well, they just let me go back to Kanto region and promoted me to police inspector. But they didn't tell me what I was going to do after I went back." Arthur chuckled. The position of police inspector is very high, but not high either. It depends on how you think about it. At least for most people, it is a height that they can never reach in their lifetime. But for Arthur, it is just the beginning. His cousin is now the police inspector of Kanto region, which is the second-order height of Interpol. His status is no worse than that of elite or even champion. Kanto Alliance will set up a special joint brigade against Team Rocket. There will be people from Kanto Elite, Jim, Officer Jenny, Search Department, Interpol and other departments. Dew said in a serious tone. "I have no objection to you calling Kanto Elite, but why do you call gym trainers? Don't you know that half of the gym trainers in Kanto region are actually members of Team Rocket? Oh, by the way, if you don't know about this, then there is nothing wrong. You will be in charge of Interpol." Then Dew continued to add, "This time Interpol suffered heavy losses in the Kanto region, and at least 2/3 of its personnel were lost. So I recommended you as the representative of Interpol, and they agreed. As for your helpers, you need to discuss it among your departments later." "Okay. I have no objection." Arthur sighed lightly. Although he has been Interpol for more than a year, he doesn't know many people. How about calling Mr. Handsome? Anyway, the status of the handsome guy is not as high as his own, and it's not bad to be a tool for him honestly. Oh, by the way, the Kanto region suffered heavy losses, so why not call Ash and Gary and others? In this world, who is the best against Team Rocket? That must be Ash. Although he and Team Rocket have been in love and hatred for several years, in Ash's world, Team Rocket seems to be fine, except that Mutuo flew away and Giovanni was exposed. But Ash and others still caused a lot of trouble to Team Rocket. Unfortunately, there is no Red in this world, otherwise I would just follow Red and destroy Team Rocket directly. Well, I'm going to attack a few small teams of Team Rocket these days to get some information first. As for you, let's discuss it in Indigo Plateau. Dew thought about it and said to Arthur again. I understand. Arthur hung up the phone quickly. At the same time, he was a little helpless. He actually entered this team as a representative of Interpol. With his own strength, it seems that he is still a little insufficient. However, for him, this is not an opportunity. I just hope that there will not be all ghosts in this team. Arthur looked at his Arcanine, Ninetales, Pidgeot, and Eevee, and sighed silently. He is still not strong enough. Chapter 7 Gary, I feel like you are taking advantage of me. Pallet Town is located in the south of Viridian City and is known as the purest and most pollution-free place. It is rumored that Pallet Town was originally named Pure White Town, and later it was renamed Pallet Town in memory of Professor Oak's great-great-grandfather Oak Shinshin. Therefore, in this town, the Oak family has a special status. Today, this town has a great reputation all over the world because of Professor Oak's existence. Professor Oak's reputation is not only in the scientific research community, but also in the trainer community, but he also has a very high reputation. I don't know how many trainers learned the basic knowledge from Professor Oak's lectures when they were young. If one day Professor Oak wants to run for the Alliance president, Damaranch may not be able to beat Professor Oak. On this day, in the backyard of Professor Oak's laboratory, two teenagers were staring at a group of Pokemon. Gary, what do you think of that Squirtle? Look at that Cal head, it is definitely a good Squirtle. A teenager with a Z mark on his cheek shouted at Gary. Stupid Ash, Squirtle's talent is not judged in this way. Gary glanced at Ash speechlessly, and sighed silently in his heart. He had long known from his grandfather that Ash was not qualified to receive the 3 great Pokemon. However, as a grandfather, he has always taken care of the children in Pallet Town. Moreover, Aunt Delia often helps them take care of Pokemon. Gary also knows that his grandfather has prepared a Pikachu for Ash. If possible, Gary wants to remind his grandfather, what's good about Pikachu, there are so many Pokemon in their yard, and they sometimes give birth to offspring, among which there are many suitable to become Ash's Pokemon. But his grandfather seems to be very enthusiastic about that Pikachu, saying that Pikachu is the most suitable Pokemon for Ash. He can't say much. However, he will also choose Earl Dervish Pokemon in a few days. Which one should he choose? Now I have Eevee and Growlithe. When I go out to travel, I will evolve Growlithe into Arcanine as my main fire type. I don't need to choose Charmander. It's not easy to choose between Bulbasaur and Squirtle. These are all Pokemon I like. If possible, Gary really wants to say that I want them all. But for the 3 Pokemon, under normal circumstances, there is only one chance to choose, unless there are some special circumstances. Gary didn't think so much now. He knew that it was very difficult to meet the 3 Pokemon in the wild. How could there be someone in this world who could capture all kinds of 3 Pokemon just by going out for a trip? This is impossible, absolutely impossible. Gary, we have to capture Pokemon based on our feelings. How can we capture Pokemon based on their talents? Ash said to Arthur with a little dissatisfaction. Besides, Arthur said that we must not only look at the talents of Pokemon when we capture Pokemon. If we are sincere enough to Pokemon, Pokemon will respond to our feelings. *******. Gary immediately said dissatisfiedly after hearing this, "Who are you calling brother? I am your uncle, do you understand? You should call me uncle, not brother. Who are you taking advantage of?" Gary and Arthur have been together for a few years. At first, he was a little uncomfortable calling Arthur, who was 1 or 2 years older than him, uncle. But Arthur is really his uncle according to seniority, and Casey May is 1 or 2 years older than Arthur, so shouldn't she call Arthur uncle? Now Gary can accept this identity, but what does Ash mean? "But I always call Arthur brother." Ash scratched his head and said nonchalantly, "At most, Gary, you can call me uncle too. You be **************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** furious. At this time, he didn't know whether Ash understood what he meant or was deliberately taking advantage of him. So angry. You are here. Gary, Ash. Just when Gary was about to lose his temper, a sweet voice appeared not far from them. "It's Casey May." Ash greeted her quickly. Ash still had a good impression of this gentle big sister, who was much easier to get along with than Gary. "I'm watching the Three Great Families, sister, what's up?" Gary saw that it was his sister, so he suppressed his temper and asked Casey. Casey looked a little strange today, completely different from her usual outfit, with delicate makeup, a hip skirt that showed her figure to the fullest, and long legs wrapped in laces. Even Gary couldn't help but sigh that his sister was pretty. If he had a girlfriend so pretty, why would he find so many girlfriends? "Arthur is coming back today, don't you know?" Casey looked at Gary in surprise. Arthur and Gary have always had a good relationship, so it doesn't make sense that Arthur told him but not Gary, right? "Arthur is coming back?" "I don't know." Gary frowned. Why didn't he know that Arthur was coming back? "It should be because it was a little too late to talk about this yesterday, and Arthur thought you were asleep, so he didn't tell you?" Casey quickly changed the subject, but she felt happy in her heart. "Sure enough, my status and Gary's are different. It was worth it that I got up early and put on beautiful makeup, and wore Arthur's favorite hi-fi." "Is that so?" Gary didn't feel strange when he heard it. After all, Arthur and Casey have always had a good relationship. Unlike himself, who felt Casey was annoying, Arthur didn't seem to have such a feeling. When Arthur was at home, he often saw Casey coming out of Arthur's room at night. Alas, what's the point of studying those breeding knowledge? They are all trainers. Professional things should be done by professionals. Here it comes. Suddenly, Casey looked at Soaring in the Sky, and there was a black spot in Soaring in the Sky, which was rapidly enlarged from far to near. Has the Pidgeotto grown so big? Gary instantly recognized the Pokémon that Arthur was sitting on. Even if he just looked at it from a distance, he could see that Arthur had trained the Pidgeot very well. When he goes out to travel, he must train a Pidgeot that is better than Arthur's. Chapter 8 Where is Mega Rookie? As Pidgeot landed quickly, Arthur was wearing jeans, a sky blue casual shirt, and an EV on his shoulder. Getting off Pidgeot, Arthur, with a sunny look, greeted the three people, Casey, Gary, Ash. "Long time no see." "Long time no see, Arthur." Ash greeted carelessly, and then quickly stepped forward and asked, "Arthur, this year, show me what Pokémon you have captured this year." "Pokémon? I didn't capture much." Arthur waved his hand. After all, if you capture Pokémon, you need to be responsible for them, not just capture them and ignore them. "Now I have only captured 5 Pokémon." "Well, Aaron was hatched yesterday, and Arthur also has 5 Pokémon." As he said that, Arthur took out a Minccino Pokémon egg from his backpack and handed it to Casey May, saying softly, "Casey May, this is a Minccino Pokémon egg that I accidentally got. It can evolve into Cinccino with a shiny stone. I give it to you." "Minccino? Thank you, I like it very much." Casey May took the Pokémon egg and said lovingly. She is not Gary, who doesn't like fighting. At the same time, as Professor Oak's granddaughter, she is not unfamiliar with Minccino. Now Arthur can give her a Minccino, which seems not bad. "Minccino?" Gary frowned, and then chuckled disdainfully. Only Casey May would like such a cute Pokémon. He must capture a powerful Pokémon, such as Salamence, or at least Agron. "Arthur, show me your current Pokémon." Ash shouted at Arthur again at this time. "I haven't captured many Pokémon, mostly the ones I had before, and usually they are on missions outside." "Forget it, come out. Everyone," Arthur said, opening his Pokeball and releasing his Pokémon one after another. The majestic Arcanine, the elegant and noble Ice Ninetales, the cute Eevee lying on Arthur's shoulder, the Pidgeot tidying up feathers with his beak, and Aaron who stayed on the ground and didn't know where to go. This Pokémon? Gary was instantly attracted by Aaron. He had said before that he wanted to capture Agron, but he didn't expect that Arthur already had Aaron. "I saved his egg from the poachers before, and then I hatched it and captured it." Arthur touched Aaron's head and said softly. "How much?" Aaron nudged Arthur, expressing his affection for Arthur. Many excellent trainers like to hatch Pokémon eggs by themselves, which can also make the trainer and Pokémon have a deeper bond. "Aaron?" Casey looked at Aaron on the ground with a little surprise. This is the first time I have seen Aaron. I have only seen Agron before. Oh, I want it too. Gary looked at Arthur with envy. Although Aaron is not a very precious Pokemon, it is also a Pokemon worth Gary's special capture. When I go out to travel, I must go to the Hoenn region to capture Agron. Pokemon, Aaron. Attribute, Steel, Rock. Height, 0.28 meters, average height of the race is 0.4 meters. Weight, 93 kilograms, average weight of the race is 60 kilograms. Ability, Hard Head, Heavy Metal. Gender, Male. Skills, Tackle, Harden, Iron Head. Strength, Novice. Potential, Elite. System evaluation, Aaron is very talented. The combination of hard head and heavy metal can play a good role in battle. Arthur is quite satisfied with this Aaron. If it is well cultivated, it may not be impossible to become his main tank in the future. Although it only has the potential of elite level, Pokemon with elite potential are already rare, and with Arthur's resources, there is a chance to cultivate Aaron to exceed its own limits. I have never seen a Pokemon before, it looks very good. Ash came to Aaron's side. Well, this is a Pokemon he has never seen before, and he subconsciously wants to hug it. Then his face changed, and he couldn't help but exclaimed, "What a heavy Pokemon. Ash, can't you hold it up?" Arthur asked, looking at Ash curiously. The other party is a mega rookie, how could he not be able to hold Aaron? Although the heavy metal Aaron is very heavy, Ash's performance in the animation definitely doesn't feel heavy. Although I am quite strong, this Pokemon is really heavy. Ash gave up the idea of holding Aaron and said helplessly. Arthur, your Aaron has heavy metal? Gary asked. Well, it is indeed the ability of heavy metal. Arthur did not hide it, don't look at it as small, it weighs 93 kilograms. When it grows bigger, the weight may be even more terrifying. Hiss. The other three couldn't help but take a breath of cold air when they heard Arthur's words. 93 kilograms, who can report this? But before they could complain, an amazing thing appeared in front of them. Aaron was actually held up by Arthur. When did Arthur become so strong? Fortunately, it's still within my acceptable range now. Arthur smiled and put Aaron down again, saying with emotion, when it grows up a little bit, I won't be able to hold it. At the same time, Arthur also had some guesses about Ash's inability to hold Aaron. Ash is not a real mega rookie now. I'm afraid that he will have to wait until he is resurrected by Ho-Oh before he can truly become the normal Ash. After all, Ho-Oh resurrected 3 Pokemon, and those 3 Pokemon became the 3 sacred beasts. It seems normal that Ash resurrected and had a physical strength comparable to the legendary Pokemon. If he hadn't awakened the power of Waveguide and had a strong body, he wouldn't be able to hold Aaron. Huh. Just as Arthur was about to say something, Arthur felt a Waveguide power scanning him. Although this Waveguide scan was very hidden, Arthur was keenly aware of it. Are there any Pokemon in the laboratory that are good at Waveguide? This was something Arthur had never expected. Chapter 9, The Pokemon That's Best for Arthur. Everything has Waveguides, but there are not many Pokemon that can control them. In addition to legendary Pokemon or mythical beasts such as Mewtwo, Mew, and the 3 creators, there are only. Well, it seems that there are still many Pokemon that can learn Aura Sphere. At the beginning, only a few Pokemon could master Aura Sphere. After the appearance of Sword and Shield and Vermilion, a large number of Pokemon have the possibility of learning Aura Sphere. Of course, in addition to the legendary Pokemon, Lucario is the most famous for the power of Waveguide. Many of the other ordinary Pokemon can master Aura Sphere in theory, but not many are really good at it. When Arthur was in the Hoenn region before, he did not look for Riolu's traces, but when he was on a mission, Arthur did not see a wild Riolu. Arthur plans to wait for a while, and after he has made some contributions, he will ask the Alliance to help him find a Riolu with good talent. But now there is a Pokemon using Waveguide to detect him, which makes Arthur stunned for a moment, and then he becomes excited again. This guy seems to have a bright future. With his excellent Waveguide control ability, Arthur quickly locked on the place where the 3 starters gathered not far away. There is a silly turtle in the pond that is thinner than the ordinary Squirtle, lurking and observing him. Was it attracted by his waveguide? Arthur subconsciously scanned the Squirtle. Pokemon, Squirtle. Attribute, Water. Height, 0.48 meters, average height of the species is 0.5 meters. Weight, 7.8 kilograms, average weight of the species is 9 kilograms. Ability, Torrent. Gender, male. Skills, Tackle, Tail Whip, Aura Sphere. Strength, Novice. Potential, Champion. System evaluation, Squirtle is very talented. It looks thin and weak. Its parents' talents don't seem to be very good. It has excellent talents in waveguide and fighting. As long as you are willing to devote resources to it, it will definitely become a partner you can trust. Seeing Squirtle's information, Arthur couldn't help but take a breath. Squirtle with champion potential? I didn't expect that there would be such a Squirtle here. Then Arthur scanned the other Pokemon again. Pokemon, Squirtle. Potential, Elite. Pokemon, Squirtle. Potential, Elite. Pokemon, Charmander. Potential, Quasi-Elite. Pokemon, Bulbasaur. Potential, Gym Level. Pokemon, Bulbasaur. Potential, Elite. Pokemon, Charmander. Potential, Quasi-Elite. A Squirtle with champion potential, 2 Squirtle with elite potential, a Bulbasaur with elite potential, 2 Charmanders with quasi-elite potential, and a gym-level Bulbasaur. Even though Arthur knew that the 3 starters in this round would be very good, he didn't expect them to be so good. I think these 3 starters were specially arranged to take special care of them. After all, the gym level of normal starter Pokemon is quite common, and those with quasi-elite potential are already quite excellent. But this time, there are so many elite potential, even Pokemon with champion potential. Well, now Arthur admits that he is tempted. At the beginning, Arthur also wanted a Charmander as his Earl Dervish Pokemon. After all, if you come to the Pokemon world without cultivating a Charizard, you will have a sense of déjà vu of traveling through time. Arthur's good friend Dew has a Charizard with good strength. As for the Dondi who is praised as the strongest champion, Arthur has not seen it yet. But now there is an excellent Squirtle, and it is a Squirtle that is good at fighting and waveguide. How could Arthur choose other Pokemon? Unless there is a Charmander with champion talent in front of him for him to choose. As for Charizard? As long as you are strong enough, you will always have a chance to get it. What's more, he just got the training method of Kame Senryu, and now there is a Squirtle. Isn't this a match made in heaven? Arthur, are you interested in that Squirtle? Noticing Arthur's gaze, Gary reminded him, oh, by the way, you don't seem to have chosen Earl Dervish's 3 starters yet. I advise you not to choose that Squirtle. That Squirtle doesn't seem to know how to use water gun. His talent is obviously not good. The talents of the other 2 Squirtless are good. There is one thing Gary didn't say. He has already taken a fancy to a Squirtle and plans to choose a Squirtle as his Earl Dervish Pokemon. Of course, it's not the one that Arthur has chosen. Is it a Squirtle that can't even soak water? No, I feel that this Squirtle and I are a good match. Arthur chuckled, staring at Squirtle with burning eyes and said, this is the resonance from the waveguide. No one is more suitable to cultivate this Squirtle than me. As Arthur said this, he walked towards the direction of Squirtle, and an amazing waveguide burst out from his body. What is this? Ash was dumbfounded. Waveguide? What is that? Even Gary and Casey did not expect that Arthur actually mastered the power of waveguide. Obviously, before leaving, Arthur did not have such means. On the other side, Professor Oak, who had just packed up the research materials, came to the backyard and saw this scene, and he also showed a look of relief. Professor Oak was one of the few people who knew that Arthur had awakened the power of waveguide. In his opinion, this is definitely a good thing. After all, awakening the power of waveguide can also strengthen Arthur's self-protection ability. Professor Oak had thought about getting a Riolu for Arthur. After all, heroes with waveguides can often attract Riolu's service. However, Riolu with outstanding talent is too rare. He originally wanted to sell some face to his old friend Lucario's children, but he accidentally knew the existence of this Squirtle. Although it is not Riolu, it is the Pokémon that is most suitable for Arthur. Sure enough, Arthur just came to the laboratory and he fell in love with Squirtle. Is this a mutual appreciation between geniuses? No, this is a turtle and a mung bean, and they fell in love. Then, Professor Oak looked at Aaron lying on the side. Aaron of heavy metal must be studied carefully. D. Chapter 10 Koga becomes a teammate? Squirtle, I'm very optimistic about you. Do you want to be my Pokémon? Arthur released his own waveguide, stretched out his hand and said to Squirtle in a gentle tone. Jenny. Squirtle blinked, full of curiosity about Arthur. Such a powerful waveguide, I didn't expect that there would be such a waveguide among humans. What to do? I really want to follow this adult. Squirtle is very smart. It knows that it will eventually find a trainer to follow. Why can't it be the one in front of it? Believe me, no one is more suitable for you than me. Arthur rubbed Squirtle's head and input his own waveguide into Squirtle's head. Jenny. This Squirtle seemed to have done a mega health care. This feeling was really comfortable. Turtle said that his head was rubbed and felt comfortable. Then I'll take it as your promise, Squirtle. Seeing Squirtle like this, Arthur also said with a smile. There is no need to prepare extra turtle shells. I will start the Kamesun Ryu training tomorrow. Arthur, congratulations, this is Squirtle's Pokeball. Although the date for selecting the 3 starters has not yet arrived, your qualification is still there, so it is no problem to receive it now. Professor Oak smiled and took out a Pokeball and handed it to Arthur and said softly. Thank you, Uncle. Arthur took the Pokeball and did not refuse, and directly put Squirtle in it. It seems that this Squirtle was specially prepared by Professor Oak for him. I said, how could a Squirtle who is good at waveguides suddenly appear in the laboratory? Professor Oak had specially told me to come back before, I think it was for this Squirtle. You really conquered this Squirtle. Gary came to Arthur and sighed when he saw this scene. I have also decided that I will choose Squirtle later. Let's see whose Squirtle is stronger then. Speaking of the latter, Gary's eyes looking at Arthur became hot. Arthur's EV and Arcanine are related to him. He also has similar EV and Growlithe. They were obtained together at the beginning. Now the strength of both sides is very different. Gary does not think that he is not as good as Arthur, but Arthur travels and fights outside, while he can only be in the laboratory. If he had also set out to travel a year ago, he would definitely not be inferior to Arthur. Okay, let's wait and see. Arthur sighed when he saw Gary like this. He is worthy of being Gary. He didn't feel strange at all that the other party would do such a thing. Okay, Arthur, you must be tired after all the hard work. I have already cleaned up your room for you. At this time, Casey May stared at Arthur and said softly, take a shower first, and then we will have dinner together. Okay. You don't even want to call me uncle, Arthur muttered, but didn't say much. Casey May is still so gentle. This is the Pokédex I collected this year, uncle, please transfer the data. After taking a shower happily, Arthur handed his Pokédex to Professor Oak and said. Well, thank you for your help. Professor Oak took the Pokémon Pokédex and ran to the computer to operate it without eating. Brother Arthur, what is the Hoenn region like? Are the Pokémon there different from ours? Ash asked Arthur curiously with expectation. There are indeed many interesting Pokémon there. After you travel to the Kanto region and Johto region, you can consider traveling to the Hoenn region. Arthur chuckled and said, the legends there are different from ours, and there are also many interesting Pokémon. I think you will like it. Is that so? The Pokémon in each region are different. It seems that I have to travel around the world in the future. Ash nodded suddenly. Why did you think of returning to the Kanto region? Is Samson going to travel with us? Gary looked at Arthur curiously. It seems that my uncle's original goal was the same as mine, to become a trainer and then participate in the competitions in various regions. But in the end, I don't know what went wrong and went to do Interpol. Travel? Even if I want to, there is no chance. I have to go to Indigo Plateau for a meeting tomorrow. Arthur spread his hands, however, should be in Kanto region for a long time in the future. Maybe we will have the opportunity to cooperate in the future. Gary pursed his lips, not knowing whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Is it because of Team Rocket? Recently, Team Rocket has been very rampant. When I went to Viridian City to buy things a few days ago, I heard that Team Rocket ran to Viridian City to make trouble and was finally caught by gym leader Giovanni. Casey said with emotion, if every gym leader is like Mr. Giovanni, there will be no Team Rocket in Kanto region. No, if every gym leader in Kanto region is like Giovanni, then there is really no future. Giovanni is the boss of Team Rocket, but Arthur is not in a position to talk about this here. Giovanni is a very powerful gym leader. If nothing unexpected happens, he can become an elite in Kanto region without any problem as long as he is willing. At this time, Professor Oak put down the Pokemon Pokédex and came to the side of several people and sighed, I have also studied his tutorials on ground Pokemon, although they are not perfect. It is certainly not all his knowledge, but it has a great role in popularizing ground Pokemon. Many small tricks are extremely useful for ordinary trainers. It's a pity that he doesn't want to join your team, otherwise it will be much easier for you to deal with Team Rocket. No, if he joins, it will really be impossible to play. Uncle, do you know which gym leader will join? Arthur asked with a little curiosity. The details are not clear, but Koga from Fuchsia City will participate. If nothing goes wrong, Koga will go to Johto region to become a poison elite next year. This operation is also an opportunity for Koga. Professor Oak thought for a while and said softly. Chapter 11 Are all members of Team Rocket on my side? Koga? Arthur's eyelids twitched slightly. Good guy, Koga was called directly. If he didn't know Koga's true identity, Arthur would feel that Koga was indeed a good candidate. An elite-level trainer is also a good main choice when fighting against Team Rocket. But Koga is a member of Team Rocket. After hearing Professor Oak's words, Arthur also realized that this so-called special team was not very reliable. Koga is good at poison-type Pokemon and has excellent abilities. Then Professor Oak continued to add, at the same time, Erica from Celadon City volunteered to join. She is about the same age as you. She has just become a gym trainer for less than a year. Such a major event happened near her jurisdiction. It is understandable that she wants to participate. At this point, Professor Oak also signaled Arthur with his eyes, wanting Arthur to seize this opportunity. After all, Erica is a famous white and rich beauty in the Kanto region. Erica's grandfather is also his good friend. Professor Oak knows Erica's personality very well. The other party is indeed very suitable to be Arthur's wife. However, Arthur pretended not to see Professor Oak's hints. Uncle, if you continue to hint like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat hot meals starting tomorrow. Your granddaughter's eyes are already quite dangerous when she looks at you, do you know that? Of course, Erica's strength may be enough as a gym trainer, but if she has to face Team Rocket, she may not be able to do it. After a pause, Professor Oak continued, before, I was also worried about your safety. Team Rocket's strength is obviously beyond everyone's imagination. I even suspect that after decades of development, Team Rocket may have grown to the point where it can taunt Kanto Alliance. Casey May's face changed slightly. Team Rocket is so strong, isn't it dangerous for Arthur? Don't worry. Arthur pinched Casey May's little hand while Professor Oak was not paying attention, and comforted her. Although I am not a strong man, I still have some confidence in myself. Well, if I am not mistaken, Arthur's Arcanine has reached the elite level. Professor Oak looked at Arthur with admiration. It took only more than a year to cultivate an elite Pokemon, which is already very good. It is worthy of being my nephew. What? Arcanine has reached the elite level? Gary was furious when he heard this. After knowing how powerful Team Rocket was, Gary was also worried about Arthur. But now that he knew that Arcanine was an elite Pokemon, Gary was immediately upset. His Growlithe and Arthur's Arcanine were obtained at the same time, but the other party's Arcanine was already elite. But his Growlithe was only at the elite level. No, I'll evolve Growlithe today. It just reached it not long ago. Arthur did not hide it when he saw this, but I only have this one elite Pokemon at the moment. Is Eevee not going to evolve yet? Professor Oak asked curiously, looking at the Eevee with the immutable stone hanging around his neck playing with Gary's Eevee. If Eevee can evolve, it may grow to the elite level in a short period of time, right? What? Gary didn't know what to say at this time. He also has Eevee, but his Eevee is similar to Growlithe. Originally, Gary thought that Arthur's Eevee was similar to his own. After all, how strong could it be without evolution? But the reality slapped him in the face again. Arthur's Eevee is probably very high. I haven't decided what attribute I want Eevee to evolve into yet. Arthur touched his neck. Sun Pokemon, Sylveon, Ice Pokemon, Leaf Pokemon, all seem to be very good. Sylveon? Casey was also curious at this time. Even she was very unfamiliar with this kind of Pokemon. This is a very special evolutionary form, very rare, and has only appeared a few times. Humans have not yet studied the evolutionary requirements of this Eevee. Professor Oak patiently explained, as for the other forms, the research community has almost discovered them now. Does Eevee have so many evolutionary forms? Gary's eyes flickered slightly. In the Kanto region, most people only know those 3 forms, but Gary doesn't like it very much. He had learned about the evolutionary requirements of Sun Pokemon and Moon Pokemon from his grandfather before. He also planned to evolve his Eevee into one of these 2 forms. As for whether it is Sun Pokemon or Moon Pokemon, it depends on Eevee's own wishes, and it will evolve into whatever it is. But Gary has not considered Leaf Pokemon, and maybe he needs to find time to study it carefully. After all, there is only one evolution, so there is no rush for the time being. Arthur's eyes flashed with a hint of strangeness. It seems that his Eevee has already met the conditions for evolving into Sylveon, so why not find a time to evolve it? What my uncle said before was right. My Pokemon level is still a little insufficient. Is that so? Professor Oak didn't say much. Arthur, you have great potential in training Pokemon. In less than 2 years, you have trained them to this level. If you had gone out to travel, you should have become a very good trainer. Now your Pokemon should be able to barely protect itself with your wave power. I also wanted to go out to travel, but the system asked me to catch criminals, which was also unavoidable. Without the benefits brought by the system, it would not be so easy for me to grow up so quickly. At least the system's identification technique is very useful. It can help me see the potential of Pokemon, and it will also tell me the status of Pokemon and training suggestions. Of course, the most important thing is that the system can send me some props from time to time. Although many props can be bought with money, it does reduce a lot of trouble. It's true that I can barely protect myself. Thinking of Giovanni's strength, Arthur sighed inwardly. He should let Giovanni take the lead in the future. He still needs to develop for a while. Chapter 12 Guzzy, you have changed. Late at night, in Arthur's room, Arthur was using his own authority to search for the information he needed on the computer. If someone was around, they would be shocked by the information Arthur was looking up. He actually looked up the information of the gym leaders in the Kanto region, especially Sabrina's information. It seems that this Sabrina has a big problem, but no one would have thought that she would run to join the rocket team. Arthur looked at Sabrina's message and murmured, but what is she doing? Ambitious? Lack of love? Or does she need fatherly love and regard Giovanni as her father? Arthur didn't know these, but he felt that he might be able to start with Sabrina. After all, compared to others, Sabrina is dangerous, but she doesn't have so many schemes. Squeak! Just as Arthur was thinking, the door was opened, and a tiptoeing figure came in from outside. When she carefully closed the door, she saw Arthur staring at a woman's photo in a daze, which made Casey May angry. Dog, you have changed. You're here. Casey May. Fortunately, Arthur is not a fool. He has already sensed Casey May's presence with the waveguide. After Casey May came in, he quickly stood up to greet her and said, I thought you wouldn't come. Casey May puffed her cheeks and said dissatisfiedly, even if I don't come, it's not a reason for you to look at other girls' photos. After a pause, Casey May continued, besides, this woman has a big conscience. Seeing that Casey May seemed a little jealous, Arthur hugged her into his arms and explained softly, "This is Sabrina, Saffron City gym trainer, but I suspect she is related to Team Rocket." Gym trainer, related to Team Rocket? Casey May looked at Arthur with a look of, "You are teasing me." However, she was not dissatisfied with Arthur's behavior at all. It should be said that she was used to it. Ever since Arthur moved into her house, she has had a good impression of this distant relative who is 2 years older than her Arnold. The other party always tells her some very interesting things. When I first came to visit my relatives, I didn't understand these things at that time. I thought I was sick, but I didn't dare to tell my grandfather. In the end, I only dared to tell Arthur these things. In order to let Arthur know that she had a terminal illness, Casey May also let Arthur witness her scars. Even now, Casey May still clearly remembers Arthur's shocked expression at that time. It was that time that Casey May experienced what social death was, and Arthur taught her a lot. In the next few days, Casey May was embarrassed to see Arthur at first, but in the end she didn't know what was wrong with her. The relationship between her and Arthur changed, and even became closer and closer. Fortunately, their relationship was already quite distant. In this world where even cousins can get married, there is no problem for the two of them to be together. Even in the more than a year since Arthur left, they have been in contact almost every night. And like this time, after Professor Oak and Gary fell asleep, she came to find Arthur. For Casey May, it was not the first time. Well, it's normal for Team Rocket to infiltrate Alliance in order to grow stronger. I suspect that there are gym trainers in the Kanto region that have been infiltrated by Team Rocket. Arthur spoke righteously, but his hands seemed to be a little dishonest. Another leg-playing year. If that's the case, aren't you in danger, Arthur? Why don't you tell my father about this and let him handle it himself? This is too dangerous for you. Casey May looked at Arthur with worry. As for where Arthur's hand was, she had long been accustomed to it. Not to mention, Arthur hasn't come back for so long, she really misses him a little. Your father will definitely be very happy to have such a filial daughter like you. Arthur couldn't help but complain. Casey May and Gary's father used to be a trainer, and his strength would not be weaker than the current do, otherwise, he would not be able to become a senior executive of Interpol. But if he were to face the Rockets, it would probably be a tragedy. Even in Arthur's opinion, he was not as safe as himself, at least Arthur knew who the boss of the Rockets was. Humph, who told that guy not to come back usually, I haven't seen him for 3 years. Casey May snorted in dissatisfaction. Hearing Casey May mention this, Arthur was also a little helpless. His distant cousin really didn't care much about his family. Not to mention Casey's beauty, even Gary didn't have a very deep impression of this father. Their mother died when they were very young, so it can be said that they were brought up by Professor Oak since they were young. Otherwise, Casey wouldn't be so ignorant. Team Rocket is still dangerous to me, but it's under control. Otherwise, my uncle and the others wouldn't agree to let me deal with Team Rocket. Arthur comforted him softly. Next, Aaron and Squirtle may have to train in the laboratory for a while, so I'll leave them to you to take care of. Don't worry, Arthur. I said at the beginning that I would be your breeder and help you train Pokémon. In the past few years, I have taken care of many Pokémon in the laboratory. Just leave Aaron and the others to me. However, Arthur, you should capture more Pokémon. After all, you are Interpol and don't have the restrictions of ordinary trainers. If conditions permit, you can bring 100 Pokémon with you. Casey said to Arthur earnestly, your mission is so dangerous that you must improve your strength. The level of Pokémon cannot be quickly improved in a short period of time, but you can increase the number of Pokémon. But as a trainer, we also need to Pokémon is responsible, isn't it? Casey, if I capture a lot of Pokémon, I won't be able to form a bond with a lot of Pokémon at the same time. Arthur said seriously, just like the relationship between us, I also need to be responsible for you, right? If you can't be sincere to Pokémon, then that person won't be too serious about the other half. Can people and Pokémon be the same? Casey subconsciously wanted to ask that question, but thinking about it carefully, it seems that there is nothing wrong. Everyone has a different attitude towards Pokémon, and Grandpa won't deliberately guide them on how to treat Pokémon. But I also asked them about their attitude towards Pokemon. Chapter 13 Doo's Plan. Casey clearly remembered that she had answered that Pokemon was her child. And Arthur was her family. Arthur really treated his Pokemon as his family. This boy really loved Pokemon, and he used his actions to protect Pokemon and fight crime. Casey still remembered that Gary said Pokemon was his battle pet. Grandpa didn't say much at the time, but just looked at Gary meaningfully. Since then, Grandpa has become more serious when treating Gary. Now Gary seems to have regarded Pokemon as a fighting partner. Perhaps it was because Arthur regarded Pokemon as his family that he became a righteous Interpol, fighting crime, and now he is even an enemy of Team Rocket. Seeing Arthur like this, Casey said that she felt distressed, but more proud of him. "Casey, are you staying today? I have to go to Indigo Plateau for a meeting tomorrow." Arthur hugged Casey from behind and asked softly. "What are you talking about?" Casey May slapped Arthur in annoyance. The two of them haven't developed to the final step yet, how could they stay? She is no longer the little girl who knew nothing a few years ago. If she stays here, she will definitely be eaten up, and it is possible that Grandpa and others will know about it. She doesn't want them to know about this yet. "But, are you going to Indigo Plateau tomorrow?" Then Casey May asked again with a little dissatisfaction. "Well, Doo called me to a meeting before. There will be an internal meeting early in the morning. This meeting is very important and is related to my future actions," Arthur said while practicing Aura Sphere. "Is that so?" Casey May slapped Arthur's hand in a stern manner. She jumped up in a hurry, walked quickly to the door of the room, stared at Arthur and said, "Then you should rest early. It will take at least 1 to 2 hours to get from Pallet Town to Indigo Plateau, even if you take a Pidgeot." After hesitating for a while, she took out a black silk item from her belt and handed it to Arthur. "If you want, you can use this. This is today." Pursing her lips, Casey May continued to add, "I will deal with it tomorrow. Why don't you stay and help me yourself?" Arthur said with a smile, looking at the things in Casey May's hand. Casey May's pretty face turned red, and she threw the present in her hand on Arthur's face, snorted and said, "Arthur, I am no longer the same person I used to be, and I am not so easy to deceive. You can use it or not." After that, Casey May opened the door and ran out in a hurry. As for what Arthur was going to do next, it was Arthur's business. Arthur took Casey May's present, looked at it, and curled his lips. Alas, Casey May is not as easy to fool as before. Of course, now is not the right time. After all, there are other people at home. Speaking of which, my collection seems to be getting more and more. It will take some time for Casey May to go on a trip. I have been working outside for more than a year, so what's wrong with taking a break? Indigo Plateau is located between Kanto region and Johto region, and is also the headquarters of the alliance of the two regions. Today, the Kanto region and even many official forces in the world have gathered here. In a huge conference room, Doo stood in front and talked freely. Last year, the crime in Kanto region increased by 10% compared with previous years, and more Pokemon were poached. These are all closely related to Team Rocket. Now Team Rocket has a tendency to be too big to be eliminated. Some time ago, it attacked a large number of official personnel. We must fight back. Arthur sat below and silently scanned everyone. As Professor Oak said before, Koga participated in this action, and next to Koga, there was a woman wearing a kimono with an elegant temperament and a Yamato Nadeshiko atmosphere. She was Erica, the gym trainer of Celadon City. As for Sabrina, who Arthur was worried about at the beginning, she did not come here, but Ma Jishir came here instead. In the previous meeting, Ma Jishir also attracted a lot of people's attention. His words were full of the Rocket Team's sins. His words that he and the Rocket Team were irreconcilable seemed to have a flavor of anti-Rocket Team's vanguard. However, looking at the looks of other people, they did not seem to doubt Ma Jishir, but thought that this was Ma Jishir. After all, the attitude that Ma Jishir showed now was almost the same as his usual attitude, which was in line with Ma Jishir's personality. In addition, Arthur also met a lot of famous people. Similarly, when Arthur was looking at these people, others were also looking at Arthur. Because of the Rocket Team's behavior, Interpol Kanto branch suffered heavy losses. Before, they all thought that their headquarters would send a respected strong man to attack the rocket team and rebuild the Kanto branch. But no one expected that Arthur would become a representative this time. Although Arthur is now a celebrity, it really does not meet everyone's expectations. While everyone was expressing their opinions, Arthur was just silently acting as a small transparent person. This was not surprising. Some people thought that Arthur was here to get rich. For Arthur, making fewer mistakes seemed to be the best choice. The morning meeting ended quickly. Just when Arthur was about to find a place to have lunch, Du called Arthur directly. "Arthur, let's have lunch together." "Okay." Seeing this, Arthur did not refuse and followed Du to an office. Du took out 2 bottles of drinks from the refrigerator, handed one to Arthur, opened the other, took a sip, and then said, "Arthur, what do you think of the meeting this morning? Sit down and watch." Arthur sat on the sofa, took a sip of the drink, and then said, "Some people are unreliable. I plan to do it myself." "Sure enough, you and I think the same thing." Hearing Arthur's words, Du's face also showed a look of heroes thinking alike. "This time, our action is so big, the rockets can't just ignore it. Among the people who came this time, there must be spies from the rockets. So those people just now were all pretexts?" Arthur raised his eyebrows playfully. "But you still said something useful in the meeting." Chapter 14 Invitation to Gary. Du waved his hand and chuckled. "Those things may be useful, but if we don't execute them, it will be meaningless. I don't expect to be able to deal with Team Rocket in a short time. I am even prepared for a protracted war. I am afraid that I will have to fight Team Rocket in the next 10 or 20 years. Team Rocket may be stronger than we expected, and it is hiding in the dark, which is the most difficult thing. Team Rocket's purpose is definitely not as simple as other evil organizations." "Team Rocket's purpose? Does finding his son count?" Arthur nodded slightly and said, "I suspect Team Rocket's goal may be to counter Alliance, or even overthrow Alliance. As for the specifics, I don't know. Anyway, we are hostile to Team Rocket." "Establish an alliance?" Du nodded thoughtfully. "What do you plan to do next?" "If necessary, I can cover for you. Interpol Kanto branch suffered heavy losses, and the Kanto branch can give me little help. They need to find Komaro's traces. After all, the impact of this incident is still very large. But they also gave me some privileges. I can form my own team." Arthur chuckled and said, "You are already a police captain, and you have the power to form your own team." Du nodded slightly and said, "Then you need to find teammates in the next period of time?" "I don't know, let's take it one step at a time. Now I think everyone looks like a spy." Arthur smiled bitterly. "Find a few subordinates you can trust, train your own Pokemon, and then slowly find trouble for Team Rocket. Even if you can't find the big fish, it's not bad to slowly find some small shrimps of Team Rocket. That's all I can do." Du could only nod slightly after hearing this. "Then I can only look forward to our next cooperation." Then, Du seemed to have thought of something and said to Arthur, "By the way, Arthur, are you interested in Dratini?" "Why? You want to give me one?" Arthur raised his eyebrows and asked Du with a playful look. "I would like to give you a Dratini, but my Dragonite and Dragonair have no offspring." Du shook his head slightly. "Besides, the offspring of my Pokemon are not something I can deal with. However, there is a way for outsiders to enter the Dragon Cave. Every year, there are 3 places for the Dragon Cave to enter, allowing trainers to enter the Dragon Cave to capture Pokemon after passing various tests. Of course, the price is that after the trainer dies, the Pokemon must return to the Dragon Cave, and its offspring must also belong to the Dragon Cave. That makes sense." Arthur nodded slightly. "In that case, the 3 places are not difficult, right? If it is an ordinary place, it may pay attention to human relations, but the Dragon Cave is different." Du said with a smile, "The number of people entering the Dragon Cave is not decided by us. It is decided by an ancestor in the Dragon Cave. It is a Dragonite who has lived for more than 500 years, and its strength is unfathomable. Trainers outside need to impress it before they can enter the Dragon Cave to capture Pokemon." "I understand." Arthur showed a look of understanding. "When does it start?" "I'll go and take a look." Every September, at least 4 months from now, I'll remind you in advance then. Du said with regret, with your character, you will definitely pass the assessment of the ancestors. However, it is also very difficult to train Pokemon like Dratini. Then remind me when the time comes. Let's go to eat, there is a meeting in the afternoon. Although I am not very interested in the next meeting. Arthur stood up and said helplessly. Du also stood up and smiled bitterly when he heard this. He didn't like this kind of meeting very much, but he was the leader of this special group and needed to coordinate various forces. Others could play badly, but he couldn't. How is it? How was the meeting today? After the afternoon meeting, Arthur also rushed back to Pallet Town. Looking at the tired Arthur, Professor Oak couldn't help but care about him. It's meaningless. Arthur spread his hands, it's all nonsense. Some are just talking nonsense, and some people are just here to get by. I plan to do it myself. Arthur slumped down on the sofa and teased Gary, who was watching TV not far away. Master Gary, do you want to join Interpol? The salary is high, the benefits are good, and there are few things to do. Do you think I don't know the situation over there? Gary rolled his eyes and said, besides, that's Team Rocket. Can I deal with it? After a pause, Gary said seriously, if I see Team Rocket doing bad things in the wild, I will definitely stop them. But I haven't thought about these things yet. Professor Oak's eyes flashed with relief when he heard this. Although Gary often showed a little bit of dandyism, at least his values were still fine. Yeah, I can understand it. Arthur chuckled, just think about it yourself. I am now qualified to recruit people to Interpol. After you enter, you will also work under me. You don't need to worry about being assigned to do various tasks. Just pay attention to Team Rocket during your trip. If you really meet Team Rocket, just contact me. And, think about it, you will definitely meet some blind guys when you travel. At that time, you can just take out your Interpol ID and solve many problems. Let me think about it. Gary's eyes flickered slightly, and it was obvious that he was already moved. He has begun to imagine the scene of himself going out to do righteous deeds, or seeing rogues and then taking out his ID. It seems that this is not bad. What are you going to do next? Do you want to rest at home? Casey handed Arthur a cup of milk tea and said with concern. I should coach Squirtle tomorrow and specify a training plan. After that, I will go to Celadon City. A large number of Interpol disappeared there before, and I always have to go and take a look. Arthur thought of what Du said before. It seems that there are Dratini even if you don't go into the Dragon Cave. Chapter 15: The correct way to exercise Squirtle. It is also necessary to go to the vicinity of Celadon City. Professor Oak said with great approval, you have just returned to Kanto, you really can't slack off. However, the disappearance of Komuro may not be simple. Of course, this is just my hunch. I understand. What needs to be done must be done, and I also plan to crack down on some poachers. Whether it is Team Rocket or ordinary poachers. Arthur said calmly, in the next period of time, the bull, ghost, and snake will appear, and I need to suppress them. If so, one Arcanine is not enough. Professor Oak reminded meaningfully. I know, so I have planned to evolve EV here. Don't be surprised when the time comes. Arthur said meaningfully. Professor Oak looked at Arthur thoughtfully, trying to see something from Arthur, but he couldn't see anything. Then, let's see the surprise Arthur prepared for himself. The next day, in the backyard of the laboratory. Squirtle, pay attention to your wave aura, control them, don't use them indiscriminately. Be careful not to spill the milk in the plate. Wave, Squirtle, you have to use the wave power properly. You have to maintain your balance, even when running, you can't let the milk bump too much, if the milk is all spilled, you and your friends will have no milk to drink today. Look, let me show you again. Oh, it spilled, it was just an accident. Look, it's fine now. Jenny. Squirtle looked at Arthur with admiration. He is worthy of being his trainer, who can control the waves so well. Don't worry, teacher, I will definitely follow your requirements and work hard to train my wave. Running training is not the key the key is to pull your own wave during exercise, and to control your own wave. This is difficult. At least Squirtle feels that it will take a long time for him to be able to control these waves. Of course, for Squirtle, this is already very precious. Before, it didn't know how to use its own waveguide, and didn't know how to exercise its waveguide. Now with Arthur's teaching, Squirtle also has expectations for the future. You treat me as a national hero, and I must repay you as a national hero. I am just a useless Squirtle who can't even use a water gun. Arthur didn't choose other Squirtless, but chose me instead. I must not let teacher down. Okay, this morning's exercise is here. According to my requirements, you must maintain at least this amount of exercise every day. Casey will supervise you for me. After the training, Arthur pointed to Casey not far away and told Squirtle. He still has to go out to perform tasks. It is impossible to bring Squirtle with him to practice for the time being. Putting him in the backyard is the best choice. Jenny. Squirtle nodded repeatedly. Is this a small workload? Not enough, definitely not enough. In order to repay teachers' trust in me, I have to at least double my training. Not bad, keep it up. Squirtle, I look forward to the day when you and I fight side by side in the future. Arthur rubbed Squirtle's head with satisfaction and said. Is this the training of Bodeo? Casey May saw Arthur start to rest, and then came over with a bottle of sports drink, asking curiously. Well, this is just the initial training. Next, please help me supervise Squirtle's training. The demand for food may be a bit large during this period, and after the training, please adjust it for it. Casey May has good breeder ability, and Arthur didn't hesitate to give him instructions directly. Don't worry, I will be responsible for everything about Squirtle in the future. Casey May quickly assured. Once, she also imagined that Arthur would become a trainer and travel, and she would become Arthur's exclusive breeder and travel with Arthur. Unfortunately, Arthur became Interpol, but now he seems to be able to continue to help Arthur take care of Pokemon, which seems to be good. And Aaron, it has just been hatched and can't fight. It also needs you to help me take care of it. Then, Arthur reminded again. Don't worry. I am still very confident in taking care of Pokemon. Whatever Pokemon you capture in the future, leave it to me to take care of. Casey May said with a little confidence. I have always trusted you, Casey May. Arthur's eyes flickered, but why didn't you come yesterday? Hearing Arthur mention this, Casey May's pretty face blushed. Don't think about these all day long, and it's not good for your health. I am a wave guide warrior, I can fight Pokemon. Arthur curled his lips. This woman actually doubted her own body. Should I teach her a lesson? If other people hear what you said, their worldview will collapse. Casey May looked at Arthur speechlessly and reminded him. But I can use waveguides. As he said that, a blue sphere appeared in Arthur's hand, which made Squirtle beside him shine. He was indeed a master who could use Aura Sphere. Moreover, this Aura Sphere was bigger than his own. It seemed that he needed to practice more. Aura Sphere? Are you really not a humanoid Pokemon? Casey May didn't know how to complain about Arthur for a moment. But this was also a disguised proof of Arthur's specialness. If he encountered danger, he might be safer. On the road from Celadon City to Fuchsia City, Arthur and Arcanine kept exploring nearby, and not far away from them, there were several official personnel doing similar things. Suddenly, Arthur set his sights on a big tree, and a curious look appeared at the corner of his mouth. Arthur, did you find anything? An officer Jenny had been paying attention to Arthur. Seeing Arthur like this, she hurried over to ask. Look here, these powders. Arthur pointed to the powders on the leafage and said softly, these powders have existed for about 4 to 5 days. If it had been 2 or 3 days later, it would have disappeared. 4 to 5 days? Are they the people from Team Rocket? Officer Jenny asked with surprise. Chapter 16, Arcanine's Cheating. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be. If I'm not mistaken, these powders should be Venomoth's stun spore. Arthur said meaningfully. As expected, Koga was behind this. After all, Venomoth is Koga's signature Pokemon. After discovering this, Arthur was not only not worried, but relieved. When Komura was fighting Team Rocket, Koga suddenly arrived. He thought it was Alliance's reinforcements, and then was backstabbed by Koga, resulting in the destruction of the entire army. This is understandable. Perhaps the gap between the two sides is not as big as imagined. More often than not, they were betrayed by their own people. Venomoth's stun spore? Does rival have Venomoth? Officer Jenny nodded thoughtfully, and she did not doubt Koga. After all, the other party is a gym trainer of the Kanto Alliance, and a future elite. How desperate is it to join Team Rocket? Then Officer Jenny said with a little hesitation, although there are a lot of trainers in the Kanto region who have Venomoth, it is also a good clue for us. Well, let's report this matter first. Arthur nodded slightly and narrowed his eyes. Should Koga be exposed at this time? No, it's not the time yet. Ding, provide effective information and clues to the Alliance, and reward a chance to draw a lottery. Suddenly, the voice in his mind appeared, which made Arthur stunned for a moment. Is the system so generous? However, thinking of the messy props that appear from time to time on the system side, Arthur was relieved. Draw a lottery. Arthur muttered silently. Ding, congratulations to the host for winning a blue flare seed. Hearing the prompt of the system, Arthur raised his mouth. It seems that he is lucky. Let the fire Pokemon absorb this blue flare seed, which can improve the strength of Pokemon and master the ability of blue flare at the same time. Arthur is not unfamiliar with blue flare, which is the exclusive skill of the god of truth Reshiram. According to legend, Reshiram can use blue flare to burn the whole world. Of course, even normal Pokemon, even if they master blue flare, can burn the whole world. Dog, this is yours. Arthur took out a green lotus seed and handed it to Arcanine. Woof. Arcanine sniffed the lotus seed with his nose, his eyes lit up, and swallowed the lotus seed in one gulp. Then, Arcanine's face showed pain. How is it? Are you okay? Although Arthur knew that Arcanine would not be in trouble because of this, after all, this is a good thing produced by the system, it is impossible to harm himself, right? I just don't know if Arcanine will change. The three sacred beasts were not like this at the beginning, and NTI even mastered the sacred flame. I don't know what Arcanine will become. Roar. Arcanine endured the pain and nodded to Arthur, indicating that he was fine and there was no need to worry. That's good. Seeing Arcanine like this, Arthur was slightly relieved, and then used the waveguide to silently sense Arcanine's situation. Fortunately, Officer Jenny and the others were busy at this time and had no time to see what happened on Arthur's side, and Arcanine was also holding back the pain and didn't make a sound. The waveguide is getting stronger. Come on, Arcanine. Arthur silently paid attention to Arcanine's situation and kept comforting him. About 5 or 6 minutes later, a trace of blue flame flashed across Arcanine's body, and after a roar, a hot column of fire was spewed out to the sky. This time it's considered a cheat. Arthur looked at Arcanine with satisfaction and murmured softly. Pokemon, Arcanine. Attribute, Fire. Height, 2.1 meters, average height of the race is 1.9 meters. Weight, 196 kilograms, average weight of the race is 155 kilograms. Ability, Intimidation, Heart of Justice. Gender, male. Skills, Extreme Speed, Play Rough, Fire Fang, Flare Blitz. Blue Flare. Strength, Elite High. Potential, Level 3 God. System Evaluation, Arcanine, who is gifted, has greatly improved his strength and has an endless future because of the baptism of Blue Flare. Seeing the evaluation of the system, Arthur didn't know what to say for a moment. Dog, you are cheating. Although the level has only been raised from Elite Elementary to Elite High, the potential has reached the height of Level 3 God in an instant. My Arcanine has reached the level of the 3 sacred beasts in an instant. Dog system, you are still useful. Well done, I'll find a rival for you later. When Arcanine stopped eruption, Arthur stroked Arcanine's head and whispered. Woof. Arcanine called out confidently. Now, it felt as if it could do everything. Booey. Evie looked at Arcanine with envy. It seemed that Arcanine had become stronger again. It also wanted to become stronger and evolve. Okay, I'll evolve you in a while. Arthur comforted him hurriedly. How about we evolve into Sylveon? Buoy, P greater than over equal to W less than over equal to Q. Evie remembered the Pokédex he had seen before. It was very beautiful. I don't know if it would be amazing if it evolved into that. Just when Arthur was about to say something else, his phone rang. He picked up the phone and saw that it was from Du again. It seems that you have already guessed it, Arthur said with a playful look. Well, he didn't say he had been there. If he had backstabbed Komuro, Komuro's army might have been wiped out. Du's tone was extremely serious. It's just that I didn't expect him to do such a thing. So are you going to arrest him now? Arthur asked with a little curiosity. No, the evidence is not enough. After all, he is the future elite and the current gym leader of Fuchsia City. It is not convenient to touch him now. Du hesitated and denied. Besides, we also need to get more clues from him. I know Koga. Even if we arrest him, he can't tell us more information. If his line is broken, we will lose the clue. In that case, let me go to Fuchsia City, test Koga, and use the waveguide to check the reality of the Fuchsia Gym. Arthur said with a smile on his face. Koga's Venomoth can just be used as Arcanine's rival. Are you deliberately trying to alert the enemy? Not bad. I'm flying to Fuchsia City right now. If he's against you, I'll support you immediately. Du seemed to understand Arthur's intention and agreed directly. Chapter 17 Battle with Koga. The Fuchsia Gym is not in the city center, but in the woods in the suburbs. Even if Arthur wants to find it, it takes a lot of effort. Inspector Arthur, why are you here? Koga was not surprised to learn that Arthur came to visit, but directly welcomed Arthur into the gym. I believe you should know the reason why I came, Gym Master Koga. I found traces of Venomoth's stun spore at the scene before. If nothing unexpected happens, the other party should be an elite-level Venomoth. And you are the only trainer who uses Venomoth, and you are the elite-level one among all the trainers I know. Arthur said in a gentle tone. His words made Koga's face stern, and his eyes flashed with coldness. Is this guy really coming for him? If that's the case, aren't you afraid to stay here? Is Arthur too arrogant, or is there already an ambush outside? Thinking of the latter possibility, Koga's heart began to get anxious. There are few people in the Kanto region who have trained Venomoth so well. Considering that we may have to face such a criminal in the future, I came to visit you, Mr. Koga, to learn more about Venomoth so as to be fully prepared for the future. As Arthur said this, he silently used the waveguide to sense the situation in the gym. The Fuchsia Gym has a basement and various mechanisms, but there is no place to detain the missing people. Perhaps Koga is also worried that his sister will find out about this. After all, Koga's sister doesn't seem to have any problems. Do you want to ask me about Venomoth? Koga's expression was a little subtle, and he looked at Arthur in surprise. After all, as a gym trainer and a future elite, Koga, you can't be the one who attacked Komuro and the others. I can't be someone who would rather be an Alliance elite than work for Team Rocket. Arthur spread his hands and said playfully, besides, Venomoth is not a precious Pokemon. I just want to know how to fight against the powerful Venomoth. Maybe I'll need your help in dealing with that trainer in the future. I always feel like you're scolding me, but I have no evidence. Koga was roaring crazily in his heart. It's true that I joined Team Rocket and will soon be an elite, but without the help and resources of Team Rocket, I might not be able to reach the level of elite. However, Koga nodded solemnly and said, I'm also curious about how such a powerful Venomoth trainer appeared in the Kanto region. What's more, I'm a member of the special team myself. Since you want to know about Venomoth, Arthur, I can't refuse. Then let's have a fight. Arthur took out the Pokeball and said to Koga. Fight? Koga was stunned again. Why did this distant nephew of Professor Oak always do confusing things? Although he is already a police inspector, he seems to be only about 16 or 17 years old. How strong can such a person be? I am a future elite. Yes, I want to witness the strength of the elite-level Venomoth. Arthur chuckled. Of course, I am not a formal trainer, so the level of Pokemon is not high. I hope, Koga, you don't mind. Just think of it as my curiosity about the elite trainer. Okay. Hearing this, Koga did not continue to refuse. Instead, he brought Arthur to the battlefield and released a Venomoth directly. Since you want to challenge Venomoth, I will not hold back in the subsequent battles. Okay. Arthur also took out the Pokeball and released Arcanine directly, who shouldn't mind if I use a fire Pokemon here. Of course. Koga said confidently. Although his Venomoth is not a real trump card main force, it is also an elite-level Pokemon. And Arthur is just an Interpol. Even though the Arcanine has a good reputation, in Koga's opinion, it is more of a boast. However, this intimidation is very imposing, and it may be a good battle. Arcanine, use agility to get close to Venomoth. Arthur took the lead in giving orders. Venomoth, toxic spikes. Koga calculated the distance and made his own instructions when Arcanine approached. A large number of spikes were thrown out by Venomoth and landed not far in front of him, which was the only way for Arcanine to attack him. Flare Blitz. But Arthur's next words were beyond Koga and Venomoth's expectations. So reckless? This is Flare Blitz. Who taught you to start Flare Blitz? Moreover, there are toxic spikes on the ground. Double team, get out of the way. Koga subconsciously wanted to make such an order, but he thought of another point. Arcanine was not only close to Venomoth at this time, but also close to him. The previous agility had shortened the distance between him and himself. If Flare Blitz was coming towards him, even if he had a large number of elite Pokemon, he could not stop such an attack. The opponent should be a person who is very good at wild fighting. Koga quickly changed his words and said, Venomoth, use Disable. At the same time, he gradually distanced himself from the field and held the Pokeball tightly in his hand. As Koga finished speaking, a terrifying energy fell on Arcanine, but because of his previous hesitation, Arcanine was running at this moment, with hot flames emanating from his body, and came not far from Arcanine. Even though Venomoth had tried to hinder Arcanine's actions, it was not so easy to stop the rushing meat bomb tank. Almost in the blink of an eye, Arcanine broke through the restraints of Venomoth's Disable, directly tackled Venomoth, and knocked it out of the competition venue, directly losing its combat ability. Kill instantly. Master Koga, what are you doing? Arthur naturally saw Koga's behavior and said with a teasing look. Nothing, I just found that I underestimated you. Koga said with a wry smile. His Venomoth was indeed at the elite level, but it had not been long since he entered the elite level. If it weren't for the large amount of resources supplied by Team Rocket, Venomoth might not have reached the elite level. As a result, the elite Venomoth was killed instantly by Arcanine. Of course, Koga also knew that he lost to Arthur because the other party had the advantage of time, place, and people. This made Koga a little confused. Is everything he did really meaningful? Chapter 18 Giovanni, this kid might be an opportunity. It seems that my strength is not bad. After all, we are fighting against criminals. If we don't have any strength, we don't know how we died. Arthur glanced at the Venomoth who had lost his ability to fight and said regretfully, however, thank you Mr. Koga for your coaching. Although this battle ended in vain, it also gave me a general understanding of the level of elite-level Venomoth. Koga's Venomoth is only the beginning of elite, but Arthur also found that the opponent's potential is only quasi-elite. It can be seen that Koga has trained Venomoth beyond its potential. For such trainers, in Arthur's opinion, they are actually worthy of respect. In order to train Pokemon to a level beyond its own limits, the energy and resources required during this period are not what normal people can imagine. Koga's eyes flashed a trace of gloom. Is he despising Venomoth? You can insult me, but insulting my Pokemon. However, I only have one powerful Pokemon, Arcanine, and the gap between me and the elites like Koga is still too big. Then, Arthur said with regret. Do you think I will believe you? Koga snorted in his heart, but on the surface he said sincerely, whether as a trainer or an Interpol, it is necessary to train more Pokemon. Especially in the wild, if there is no Pokemon to protect yourself, it is very dangerous. Boo EV, P greater than over equal to W less than over equal to Q. EV looked at Koga angrily. Did he ignore himself? When I evolve, I will definitely make you pay. How can an excellent Pokemon be so easy to train? Arthur sighed lightly, and after putting Arcanine into the Pokeball, he also said goodbye. Master Koga, I'll take my leave first. Dew is still waiting for me. Koga's eyes flickered slightly, and he said in a gentle tone, is that so? Then I won't see you off. I hope we can cooperate happily in the future against Team Rocket. I am looking forward to the scene of fighting Team Rocket with you. It will definitely happen. Arthur showed an intriguing smile. I'm afraid you will want to get rid of me when I fight Team Rocket with you. Looking at Arthur's leaving figure, Koga narrowed his eyes, then went straight to a secret room and dialed a phone. The phone rang 3 times and was connected. Boss, I'm Koga. That Arthur came to see me before. Koga reported very respectfully. It seems that he suspects you. There is no false reputation under a great reputation. It seems that this Arthur is not just relying on his background to build momentum for himself. He was able to find the Venomoth powder without anyone noticing, and even suspected you. This kid is very powerful. The person on the other end of the phone was none other than the famous Rocket Team boss Giovanni. He didn't expose me, he just fought me. Then, Koga recounted what happened just now. Giovanni on the other end of the phone listened quietly, put his hand on Persian's head and stroked it, thinking quietly, he should suspect you. But there is no evidence to prove that you are the one who attacked Komuro. That's why he came to test you deliberately. This matter is also a problem on my side. If Komuro hadn't discovered that Celadon City has our Rocket Team's base, I wouldn't have let you attack him. Next, you just be a gym trainer honestly. If you want to deal with Team Rocket, you can also cooperate with them. Do you need to get rid of Arthur? Koga didn't question Giovanni's words, but asked softly. Arthur? Giovanni narrowed his eyes. If you attack Arthur now, you will really be exposed, and the anger of that old guy Oak will also cause us huge losses. Now is not the time to provoke them. During this period, we should stay dormant. As for Arthur, I will arrange for others to contact him. While saying this, Giovanni took out a photo from his collar and looked at the boy in the photo with a dazed look. Arthur's reasoning and ability to solve cases seemed to be very powerful. If Arthur is asked to help find silver, can he help himself find it? Soon, Giovanni killed this idea again. He is not familiar with Arthur now. If he rashly asks Arthur to find silver, it will put silver in danger. At least it is not the right time yet. On the other side, after Arthur walked out of the grove, he also found Dew, who had been waiting here for a long time. How is it? Did you find anything? Dew asked hurriedly when he saw Arthur appear. No one is here. Arthur shook his head slightly. However, there is a 60% chance that the person who attacked Komuro and others should be Koga. Next, it depends on Koga's actions. He may not take any action. Watari shook his head slightly and said, I can't search for a gym trainer without evidence. If nothing unexpected happens, Koga should keep a low profile for a while. That seems to be a good idea. Let him deal with Team Rocket. Arthur chuckled. If we want him to be trusted, he needs to be diligent, right? Watari smiled at each other. Yes, he will be needed to deal with Team Rocket next. As for what will happen next, if Koga doesn't work hard, or deliberately lets Team Rocket go, then Koga will have a hard time. But there are no clues after that. Then, Watari said again with distress. Arthur held his chin with one hand. Koga must be very important to Team Rocket. He won't go out unless it's absolutely necessary. I suspect that Komuro had investigated some very important information for Team Rocket before. That's why Team Rocket had to kill him. Dew thought about it and said with approval, it is indeed very likely. Arthur, you have a really good brain. I am looking forward to our future cooperation more and more. Maybe with the efforts of you and me, we can really destroy Team Rocket. Arthur smiled and said, then let's work together to fight Team Rocket. Dew is a good fighter, and Dew's help will be indispensable in the future. Chapter 19 The reason why Ash conquered Tauros is found. Dew came and went in a hurry. Arthur proposed a possibility, and he also needed to investigate it. What if he really found some clues? Watching Dew's departure, Arthur couldn't help but sigh. It's not easy to be a partner of justice. After that, Arthur opened his phone and clicked on the database inside Interpol, and soon found the information of the wild wilderness area. He was very interested in several Pokémon here, so he let him see how this Dratini and Dragonair were. If the talent is good, it will also be a supplement to his lineup. If the talent is not good, it seems that Professor Oak Laboratory can afford to raise these two Pokémon. In the small house in the wild area, Arthur walked in and asked directly, "I want to enter the wild area, is this the registration office?" "Well, since you know the wild area, you should know the rules here, right?" Kaisa, the administrator of the wild area, took out 30 safari balls, glanced at the EV on Arthur's shoulder, and warned, "Pokémon cannot be used to fight in the protected area. Otherwise, you will not only be blacklisted in the wild area, but also be punished by the Alliance." "I know." Arthur looked at Kaisa playfully and said, "I thought you would use a shotgun to threaten me and tell me not to mess around. It seems that you know me well. However, there are a lot of Pokémon in the protected area recently, and you need to capture some." Kaisa lit a cigarette and took a deep breath, "especially Pokémon like Tauros. If you can capture some, I, the old man, will be very happy. It seems that here the number of Pokémon has exceeded the limit of the environment." Arthur nodded thoughtfully. In the past, excessive capture of Pokémon caused the number of Pokémon here to decrease drastically, so the Alliance established a protected area. But I didn't expect that the number of Pokémon is too large now, which has caused harm to the environment. Kaiser said helplessly. It's mainly because some Pokémon reproduce very quickly, while some rare Pokémon don't reproduce fast enough. Arthur said meaningfully, "In fact, you can cooperate with some organizations in the reserve and ask them to come here to capture some Pokémon such as Tauros. For example, forest rangers, search officers, and Interpol organizations don't mind capturing some Tauros." After a pause, Arthur pointed to the safari ball and said, "The reason why no one is willing to come here is mainly because of these safari balls. Even if all 30 safari balls are used up, it is often impossible to capture even one Pokémon. You can cooperate with those organizations. For example, if the staff of these organizations come to the wild wilderness area to capture specific Pokémon, they can use their own Pokeball. I think they won't refuse." "Is that so?" Kaiser pondered for a moment, looked at Arthur with gratitude and said, "Thank you very much, I will contact the higher authorities. Thank you for your advice." "You're welcome." Arthur waved his hand. "This is also a good thing for the Alliance organization. I hope that after you know what I'm going to do next, you can still talk to me so calmly. That would be interesting." Looking at Arthur's leaving figure, Kaiser rubbed his chin and murmured, "I always feel that this guy is not a normal person. Forget it, it has nothing to do with me, as long as I don't break the rules of the wild wilderness area." Kaiser looked at the photo album that he had last resorted again, and sighed in his heart again. He didn't know if it was still in this wild wilderness area. If it was still there, why didn't it continue to appear for so many years? After entering the wild area, Arthur sat on Arcanine's back and galloped in the wild area. At the same time, he called Interpol's authority to check the distribution information of Pokémon in the wild area. The wild area has a relatively detailed statistics of the distribution of Pokémon here, and the Pokeball purchased through the official channel of Alliance will be remotely locked on to cancel the ability to capture after entering the range of the wild area. Of course, you can also use the Pokeball purchased on the black market to capture Pokémon here, but once discovered, it will be considered poaching. Therefore, the protection of the wild area is not as strong as outsiders imagine. Arthur sat on Arcanine's back and silently observed the ecology of the wild area. As he had said in a chat with Caesar before, the number of Pokémon like Tauros seemed to be a bit too much, which had already threatened the survival of other Pokémon. No wonder Ash has captured 30 Tauros, and there is no sign of anything in the wild wilderness area. I'm afraid Caesar and the others are also very happy to see this scene. Arthur's eyes swept over the Tauros that appeared from time to time, and he no longer paid attention to them. These Tauros, if trained well, are quite good as mount Pokémon, but if they want to meet Arthur's requirements, they are far from it. This is not the Pokemon he wants. Pokemon, Nidorina. Potential, Gym. Pokemon, Nidorino. Potential, Gym. This is a couple in love, but when they saw the majestic Arcanine approaching, they fled in a panic, without the mighty domineering they had after their evolution. Compared with Nidoking and others, they are still very cowardly at this stage. Pokemon, Scyther. Potential, Gym. Pokemon, Scyther. Potential, Gym. Pokemon, Rhinoceros. Potential, Gym. Arthur kept shuttling back and forth in the wild wilderness area, but the more he went back and forth, the more disappointed he became. The potential of Pokemon here seemed to be a little worse than he had imagined. It's not that there are no precious Pokemon here. Pokemon like Bacchus, which are almost never seen in the wild, have a large population in the wild wilderness area. Fortunately, the number of Bacchus is too small. If there is a Bacchus in the hands of a trainer outside, it will arouse suspicion and not many people are willing to buy Bacchus. Otherwise, there will be countless poachers in the wild wilderness area. For more powerful Pokemon like Scyther, the potential of the population here seems to be relatively poor. After a tour of the wild wilderness area, Arthur finally came to the Dragon Valley. Chapter 20. I'm here to fry fish. Dragon Valley is not a huge valley. There is only a lake of about 100 acres. Unexpectedly, the environment here seems to be unexpectedly good. The environment here is good. Let's have lunch here. Arthur found a piece of land by the lake, rubbed Eevee's head and said softly, "Boy." Eevee shook his head and looked at Arthur eagerly. It has been hungry for a long time. It came to Celadon City early in the morning to solve the case and investigate the case. Then it came to Fuchsia City to see Arcanine and Koga fight. Then it came to the wild wilderness area. Now it is almost 3 o'clock in the morning. It has been hungry for a long time. Don't worry. Arthur rubbed Eevee's head, took out the energy cube and gave it to Eevee and Arcanine, and then he silently used the power of Wave to detect the Pokemon Wave aura in Dragon Valley. Not to mention that there are still a lot of Pokemon here, the environment of the wild wilderness area is obviously a bit beyond the load here. However, with Arcanine guarding, Arthur didn't have any blind Pokemon coming to cause trouble. Moreover, most of the Pokemon here were of low level, so even if they wanted to cause trouble, they couldn't make a fuss. It seems to be a bit troublesome. Arthur said softly while eating instant noodles, stroking his chin. This Dragon Valley was where Dratini used to stay. Arthur used the power of Waveguide to sense it. If he didn't sense it, he wouldn't know. Once he sensed it, he was shocked. The number of Pokemon here must be more than 1,000. There are more than 1,000 Pokemon in 100 acres of water, and this density is already quite high. And it was already very troublesome for Arthur to distinguish them. These Pokemon were still swimming constantly, which made Arthur rub his forehead. Forget it, after all, it's Dratini, and it's not easy to find it. Arthur complained helplessly. He looked at Eevee who had finished eating and said, "Eevee, do you want to go swimming?" "Boy?" Eevee blinked, as if asking if you were serious. "The water here is so dirty." "Okay, forget it, I'll do it myself." Arthur sighed lightly, regretting that he didn't bring Squirtle with him. If it was Squirtle, he would have tried hard to fulfill his request. It's a pity that he can only do it by himself. It's not allowed to capture Pokemon in the wild wilderness area, but it has never been said that humans cannot use their own force to defeat Pokemon. Those things are only for hot weapons and Pokemon. Found it. About 10 minutes later, Arthur suddenly opened his eyes, rubbed out a blue ball of light in his hand, and smashed it into the depths of the lake. After the aura sphere was released, it quickly floated into the lake and attacked Arthur's target. Boom! A splash of water exploded on the lake, and a small blue snake floated out of the water, looking around with dissatisfaction, and soon found Arthur, and quickly swam to the lake not far from Arthur, looking at Arthur with dissatisfaction. "Want one?" Seeing Dratini coming aggressively, Arthur took out a box of dragon energy cubes that he had asked Dew for before. They were specially made by his private breeder, and Dew's Dragonite said they were good. He took out an energy cube from it and handed it to Dratini, asking softly. Seeing Arthur like this, Dratini also became confused. If the feeling was correct, it should be the guy who attacked him before, right? How can you still face me so calmly? Wouldn't he feel a little guilty? However, this smells so good. Even Dratini couldn't help swallowing his saliva, looking eagerly at the energy cube in Arthur's hand. Eat it, it's not poisonous. If I want to poison you, I can just do it to you. Arthur handed the energy cube to Dratini and said softly. Pokemon, Dratini. Talent, elite. Is it just a Dratini with elite potential? Arthur frowned. It can't be said to be good, but it can't be said to be bad. Even if it is a quasi-god, not every quasi-god can reach the elite potential. Arthur has seen other trainers use quasi-gods before, and he has seen quasi-gods with only quasi-elite potential during this period. Of course, the average talent of this race is much higher than that of ordinary Pokemon. After hesitating for a while, Arthur decided to take action against this Dratini. He himself is not a trainer, so there is no rule that he can only bring 6 Pokemon. It is also good to train Dratini into Dragonair as a weatherman. Moreover, it is very difficult to find a quasi-god with champion potential. Among the main Pokemon of Dew, there is Dragonair with only elite potential. Moreover, Arthur himself has a system, and it is not impossible to draw props to improve Dratini's potential in the future. Arcanine's potential has reached the level of a 3rd-level god. Is it difficult to improve Dratini's potential? Although if he can enter the Dragon Cave to select Dratini, Arthur can definitely find a Dratini with champion potential with his cheating ability, but according to Arthur, in addition to Dratini, there are other Dragon-type quasi-gods in the Dragon Cave. Even though the Dragonite clan is marked by the Dragonite clan, they have many excellent trainers in their past generations who have gone to all parts of the world to capture Dragon-type Pokemon and brought many Dragon-type Pokemon back to the Dragon Cave. Most of the Dragon-type Pokemon in the world can be found in the Dragon Cave, it's just a matter of quantity. If he could enter the Dragon Cave, Arthur's first choice would be Dratini, but if he had Dratini, Arthur would choose other Dragon-type Pokemon. Sorry, I just wanted to say hello to you before, otherwise you would be injured now, and nothing would happen. Arthur saw Dratini's hesitation and said apologetically. Dratini looked at Arthur seriously for a long time, then stretched out his head and swallowed the energy cube handed by Arthur, with a satisfied look in his eyes. Is it delicious? There are more here. Arthur took out 2 more energy cubes and handed them to Dratini. Dratini didn't hesitate to eat the food in succession. You are listening to it in Eugene Light Novels.